taxes. I remember how many years I spent focused anti-tax pledge. It seems very quaint. Now we seem to be having an argument about a more base layer of civilization, right? So how do you think the argument, at least on the right, has changed? The sense of threat has changed?
Well, I mean, I do think that there's a very open debate now inside the right that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. And historically, conservatism was kind of rooted in the G.K. Chesterton fence principle. Right? The idea that the difference between conservative and non-conservative is that a non-conservative walks across a field, sees the fence, doesn't know why the fence is there, immediately uproots the fence. The conservative sees the fence and says, I don't know why the fence is there. I'm going to go figure out why the fence was put there in the first place before I uproot the fence. In other words, before you tear down an institution, before you rip away something that has a historic basis, try to figure out why it's there because it might be there for a pretty good reason. And I think that on the right...
I guess phrased a little bit biased in the conservative direction, for sure. I feel like the equal phrasing is like, a liberal walks into a field, he sees a fence, there's no apparent purpose for the fence being there, so he removes it so it's not in the way. The conservative goes into a field, sees a fence, there's no apparent purpose for the fence to be there, so he investigates, trying to figure out why the fence post is there, or whatever. He's close enough. I'm being very pedantic right now.
Institution, before you rip away something that has a historic basis, try to figure out why it's there, because it might be there for a pretty good reason. And I think that on the right, there's such a rage that has arisen, at least on part of the right, that the tendency is to just rip things out by the roots, rather than trying to correct or even determining whether the thing can be corrected.
The right isn't conservative anymore, it's counter-revolutionary.
It's anti-left. I mean, I think that this is, I think the
It's not just anti-left, it's anti-institutional, it's anti-government, it's constitution, it's not just anti-left. Or it's anti... It is, but it's like it's anti the left that they're showing you, which is not real. That's the issue, right? Because the Conservative Party would consider itself quote-unquote anti-left, but then when you ask them, well, who is the left? Well, the left is 85% of Democrats who want to teach kids about gay sex in middle school libraries and also force trans stuff down the throats of our pets and children and want to trans our animals and trans our 12-year-old athlete. Like, that's the left that they're opposed to. That left doesn't exist.
The left is anti-right and the right is anti-left. And I think that is, broadly speaking, a problem, right? I grew up as a sort of traditional
wrong about the left to me.
That they're anti-right?
I don't think that what motivates Bernie Sanders...
What's wrong with the left? Oh, they're anti-right. That's a great start. Oh my god. Actual demon here. Ben Shapiro. Showing up for the conservative mindset. Gotta keep that demon status, baby. I get it. Got a reputation, you gotta keep it.
Is it anti-right? You don't like Bernie Sanders?
Well, Bernie Sanders is not the mainstream left guy, though, right? I mean, he got a lot of support for his election thing, but still kind of like out of perimeter, I feel, with the party. But
about that at some point here, the way
I despise Bernie Sanders, yeah.
Fair enough. Your politics are your politics. But Bernie Sanders is profoundly motivated by a desire to pass Medicare for all. He is not motivated in the way that, say, Tucker Carlson or some figures I see on the right are motivated by a sort of like a reaction. He's had the same politics for decades and decades and decades.
But you're speaking of one particular figure. I can name figures on the right who I think are motivated much more.
You're asking who represents the left in America. Well, that would probably be the person.
I mean, I think it's the case that Zorn Mamdani represents the left in America, increasingly.
I'd also say Zorn...
Like... Is this the conversation that, well, fuck, but Ezra brought up Bernie Sanders, and I don't know if he should have, maybe. But now Mamdani is going to be the, oh my god, bro. The New York City mayor is representative of the average aggregate opinion of all Democrats in the United States of America. Really?
In particular figure, I can name figures on the right who I think are motivated much more.
You're asking who represents the left in America. Well, that would probably be the person.
I think it's the case that Zorn Mamdani represents the left in America, increasingly.
I'd also say Zorn Mamdani is motivated by desire to create free buses and rent-free cities.
I don't think that's right.
Okay, so, but let's stay on the right for a second. The counter-revolutionary side. What's the difference between being a conservative and a counter-revolutionary?
Well, I mean, I think that being a conservative is rooted in basic principles, private property, rule of law, traditional virtue, localism, subsidiarity, balance of power among the branches of government. Right? These are all the things that I grew up with as a conservative. And
like, that's great, bro, but none of this has anything to do with the modern conservative party at all. It's not even remotely related at all. Like, there's nothing to do. No one...
and I think that, obviously, President Trump's post-ideology...
I love how private property is a conservative thing, but when he talks about the left, I guarantee you he criticizes us for talking about how we criticize white people for stealing private property. Like, mainly conservatives, by the way. Because most people were conservative back then. Way more people were conservative back then. But yeah, I don't get where's this mentality of like, we don't believe in private property. If anything, we are the ones who believe in private property, and that you shouldn't be taking people's property, like, unfairly or unjustly. I realize my mic's like super on the way now. But yeah, the whole against having private property, I think that just stems from the 2020 riots, when a lot of people were justifying people burning down random businesses for some reason. I was never pro on that side, but like, and I get that there were some dumbass people that did justify that, yeah. And that's fucking retarded. You shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's not okay. If you're just burning people's shit down like that. Especially like smaller businesses that like, where that is like pretty much their entire livelihood. Like, it was just, the whole 2020 thing was just fucking chaos. But that's what you get for clickbaiting breaking news, I guess. You just end up with fucking a whole year of rioting, I guess. Not much else to say. Maybe we should stop doing it. That's an idea.
Illogical, that's for sure. And what that means is that the right has become sort of a repository for anti-left feeling, and is now a big tent. And the problem with big tent is you let in a lot of clowns. And so, yeah, obviously...
The problem is not that they've let in a lot of clowns. You are led by clowns. Donald Trump is the clown.
There are tendencies on the right. I don't think it's the overwhelming majority of the right, but I think
Yeah, he has no idea how right he is on that. Let's just say there's a reason why his middle initials are J. I'm just saying. I don't know how y'all missed that, but I'm just saying. He likes to make jokes. I'm just saying.
tendency on the right to sort of react to...
What percentage of Republicans now don't believe in the legitimacy of the 2020 election? Like, what percentage of Republicans will support Donald Trump doing whatever the fuck he wants in terms of like using National Guard to go wherever he wants, or doing literally whatever he wants in terms of foreign policy, threatening allies with invasion? Like, it's whatever.
The world with a mentality of grievance that they can then translate into a desire to rip things out by the roots.
Compared to a decade ago, are you more or less comfortable on the right?
I mean, in what way? I mean,
like, how do you even have to think about this? If you were a neocon, how could you ever be comfortable with the right? Another reason why these conversations are so fucking boring is because Ben Shapiro is like one of the leading figureheads of the right wing right now. And because I guess maybe this is just everything in politics, I guess. I'm glad I'm like nonpartisan media, so I have the opportunity to be flexible. I don't even know if these guys even have the backbone to guide their movement. Like, he's a slave to whatever Donald Trump and the rest of the right says. I don't think he has the courage or the backbone or the integrity to oppose them on anything. So every answer he gives has to be, like, well, how is the MAGA audience going to interpret this when I say this? And then everything is filtered through that. It's so boring.
Oh, are you more or less comfortable?
Oh my God, so true.
I mean, in what way? I mean, I'm
And that's like the core of the problem there is that people have a heavy fucking misunderstanding that, like, Trump ultimately has the power. And in a way, that is true. He has power, but he didn't originally have it. It was MAGA that gave him that power. And MAGA has ultimately the influence that matters here. But Trump in and of himself is such a fucking clown, like Destiny just said, that he seems like he is the problem. Because he is a huge problem. But he isn't the only problem, or at least the core issue of, like, why this country is failing and why it was always doomed to fail. But, you know, so I agree 100%. The clown needs to stop. MAGA needs to stop, but they probably never will. It's been 250 years and they're still pulling the same bullshit. That's what I don't like. I don't like acting like this is all new. It's not new. It's nothing new. It's the same shit, different century. Oh, who really deserves to be treated equally? You know, who is really equal in the country? You know what I mean? And that's ultimately just what it boils down to. And it's always been the conservatives that have held that progress back. Like, I don't know why we're sitting here thinking like MAGA is such like a big new thing. Like, not really, my dudes. Trump is, sure. But MAGA itself, not really. No, not really. Nothing new.
Well, I mean, ideologically, I don't think I've moved very much, probably over the course of my career. I started writing a syndicated column when I was 17, and so, you know, the dumbest things I said were probably between the ages of 17 and 20. Others may argue, but between the ages of 17 and probably 25, but my kind of root ideology has not changed very much in terms of being very free market oriented, being very hawkish on foreign policy, being in favor of traditional social policy. That really hasn't changed very much. I'm very comfortable with my own viewpoint. As far as, do I see more opposition from people who identify as part of the right? Yeah, obviously there's a lot more opposition. It's much more, it's a less unified movement ideologically, for sure.
Let me try to characterize what I see the argument becoming here, but you can tell me the ways in which you think this is wrong. But this is sort of what I took from the book. That the claim of the right, you have one version of it, you know, different right-wing figures have other versions of it, is that the left has turned against the foundations of Western civilization. That they've come to hate, that they now, universities teach their young to hate. Like, everything that made us great, and the virtues that made us great, strength, ambition, risk-taking, Judeo-Christian beliefs, and like this fundamental civilizational inheritance. And so what's changed, like, it used to be a fight about policy, and now it's a fight about, is all this good or not? And like,
Was it a fight about policy under Obama? When McConnell said they were going to do everything they could to make him a one-term president and resist every single thing and be oppositional to every single thing possible?
a much more fundamental kind of conflict.
I mean, I think that's a relatively fair characterization, sure.
And when do you think the topic changed? Like, how would you describe the move from, let's call it the Reaganite right, or for that matter, the left of that era, or the Democratic Party of that era,
sort of,
whatever you think we're in now?
Sure, so I sort of have a grand unifying field theory of modern American politics, which is that the election that people don't care about is actually the most important election, and that's 2012. So in 2008, Barack Obama runs as a unifying candidate. Like him or hate him, I didn't vote for him, I was not a fan. The Barack Obama ran as somebody who was in his very person unifying America. There's no red America, there's no blue America, there's just the United States, there's no black or white America, there was just Americans, and the idea was that he was going to be the apotheosis of coming together. He was going to be the culmination of just members can't don't care about is actually the most important election, and that's 2012. So in 2008, Barack Obama runs as a unifying candidate. Like him or hate him, I didn't vote for him, I was not a fan. The Barack Obama ran as somebody who was in his very personage unifying America. There's no red America, there's no blue America, there's just the United States, there's no black or white America, there was just Americans. And the idea was that he was sort of the apotheosis of the coming together. He was
There was no black or white America when it came to voting in the first black president of the United States. What a statement. What a guy. What a bold strategy. Let's see how this plays out. It's probably not going to go anywhere.
going to be the culmination of a lot of these strands of American history coming together to put to bed so many of the problems that had sort of plagued America over the course of our tumultuous history. And then he pushed a fairly rote left-wing agenda with regard to, for example, Obamacare. The reaction
Which he ran on. Right, that was not a hidden part of his campaign.
No, for sure. But that's not why people voted.
Oh my gosh. That actually is like a perfect fucking encapsulation of like my criticism of the world and why like Gen Z got fucked so hard. And it's just because you morons pretend that you're better than you actually are. Like, those words are just left a conservative's mouth. Like, if you're wondering why Gen Z, why we grew up thinking the world was way better than it was, is because of people like this, who say that it is. Not actually. Like, I've already thought about this before. Got it, more trauma dumping here. Incoming trauma nuke inbound. But, like, when I was a kid, like, the same year you voted this guy in to be president, I was getting the fruitcake beaten out of me. At 8 years old, okay? So, like, to sit here and act like everything was all fine and dandy and fixed at this point, it's just fucking laughable. It has never been fixed. Probably never will be fixed. Because the best you're capable of is at least just pretending that it's fixed. And pretending it doesn't exist. You tolerate it, at best. And that's kind of the whole issue why everything has happened. Why the left has gone as hard as they are. Is because, literally, Gen Z was nearly being beaten to death for being fucking gay or woke or black or whatever the fuck, an immigrant in this country. God forbid if you were fucking Muslim in the 2000s or fucking early 2010s even. Like, jeez, I couldn't even imagine growing up as a kid as a Muslim in this country after 9/11. Dude, I would have been like, yeah, can we just go to another country, please? I'd want out so quick. And it's... And give it another 10 years, they'll be saying the same thing about Muslim people. Like, oh, about time 9/11 happened, there wasn't really any issue between a white or brown or Muslim and Christian. And it'll be like, what? Are you high, my dude? This motherfucker's higher than me. Jesus. Oh, fuck. But yeah, that perfectly perfectly captures what my like criticism of this world is. And I think a lot of Gen Z would agree with that, is that we grew up with a very Disney-esque, the world is a good place now, even though it used to not be. And the reality is, actually, the world is still pretty shit. We just pretend we got better. And that's really where the confusion comes from, and where all that fucking random-ass trauma from Gen Z comes from, is that people don't realize that the same things that was happening in the 70s and 80s and 90s even, like, are still happening today even, and probably will for a very long time for anybody of like minority in the United States. Like, and that's just is what it is. It's the unfortunate reality that we live in. Is that is just I don't know if it's just baked in or what. I do honestly believe it's because the people who were racist back in the day never stopped being racist just because segregation ended. They raised their kids to be just as racist, if not to at least ignore that they existed, right? This is why people like my parents were raised without realizing, oh, we never went into the inner city until we were adults, and we had never realized that everybody who lived there was black. And then realized, like, my grandpa, like, specifically kept them out of the inner city away from black people because he was racist against black people. He didn't. He was raised with that racism and with segregation. Segregation ended the year before my mom was born, and then like my mom wonders like, oh, I don't know why they say this country was so racist. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. There wasn't no. I was born in 63, whatever, and I don't think she realized that segregation ended the year before she was born. I truly don't believe that she knows that. And she just believes it never happened, or whatever. And that's definitely not okay. You should know that happened. Especially that it was happening a year before you were born. That's not that long. Like...
For him, predominantly. His overwhelming victory, I do not think, was due to his support for a much more government-involved healthcare system. Democrats have been running on that my entire life. I mean, all the way back to Hillary care, and they were trying to run on that back in the 90s. So something changed, and it wasn't Obamacare, per se. So he runs, he wins, Obamacare happens, there's big blowback in the form of the Tea Party.
The Great Unifier. Did Obama call himself that, or was that Rush Limbaugh's nickname for Obama? I'm trying to remember if I'm hallucinating this or not.
Wait, was it? I thought it was O'Reilly. O'Malley? Whoever the fuck that other guy is. There's too many of them. Maybe it was. I remember hearing a clip of some conservative talk show on the radio call Obama that at some point. A couple times, actually. Maybe it was Rush Limbaugh. Yes, he might be on it. Never mind.
The Great Unifier. Am I making this up? Or did Obama call himself that? The Great Unifier?
I don't remember.
Why is Jenkins attacking? I thought he hated MAGA as much as you. No, Jenkins and our MAGA sucks, bro. What are you talking about?
It wasn't Obama.
And he reacts to that by essentially polarizing the electorate. He decides that instead of kind of broadcasting to the general electorate a sort of optimistic message about America, that he is going to narrowcast his election in 2012. He's going to base it on much more identity groups rooted politics. He's going to appeal to Black Americans as Black Americans and gay Americans as gay Americans and Latino Americans as Latino Americans. And there are a lot of articles coming out at this time about essentially demographics is destiny, and there's going to be a new minority-majority coalition in the United States. And Mitt Romney, who is the most milquetoast and probably as a personally clean candidate in my lifetime, he is characterized as a person who forcibly cuts the hair of gay kids and straps dogs to the top of his car, and he might put you all back in chains, as Joe Biden said during the campaign. And Mitt Romney loses. And I think that the parties take away from that precisely the wrong messages. They take away the same message, but then they manifest it differently. The message taken away by the Democratic Party is we have an unbeatable coalition, this new coalition that Barack Obama has forged in 2012, in which he lost votes from 2008, but he still maintained a very solid majority. This is the way forward. Right? We'll never lose again because we'll be able to cobble together a majority-minority coalition, some college-educated white people, particularly female, and we're never going to lose again. And Republicans took away exactly the same message, which was no matter how milquetoast we run, no matter how clean the candidate, we're going to get ripped up and down, and we're going to lose. We're just demographically losing the argument. And so what Republicans came away with was, we're just going to throw whatever against the wall. The big problem here is that Mitt Romney was simply too nice a guy. We need to run the biggest pulsating middle finger that we can. That pulsating middle finger is Donald Trump. And so we're going to run him in 2016. And Democrats took away from this that it basically didn't kind of matter who's at the top of the ticket. You could put in Hillary Clinton and she could just inherit the Barack Obama coalition.
I don't understand any of this analysis. How old is Ben? He's older than me, right? I don't think Obama was ever elected as like the Great Unifier.
Yeah.
It seemed to be to some extent a repudiation of the Iraq and Afghanistan stuff was deeply, I think, unpopular by the time this election season rolled around. We had the whole insane housing crisis that was completely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if we were hitting was it like $4 a gallon or $100 a barrel for oil? I think was like these were like talking points that I vaguely remember. Somebody linked polling around the time. So the economy by August of 2008, energy plus 23 points. Healthcare is here. Education not as much. Iraq was here. Terrorism. I say education not as much. But these are 73% of people that care about it. Terrorism. Moral values is 61. Environment. Trade policy. Abortion and gay marriage. Energy had grown massively in terms of being an important thing on this election. I remember the hope and change thing being a big thing for Obama. But then his analysis here, so Republicans thought that what we needed to do was this with Trump after. No, they didn't. None of the Republican establishment thought that. The Republican establishment, you included, all hated Trump. They super hated Trump.
Yeah, they hated him.
He managed to like
everybody
claw his way through the primary system because the voters voted for him, but that wasn't like a strategic thing. The voters just liked him.
Just demographically losing the argument. And so what Republicans came away with was, we're just going to throw whatever against the wall. The big problem here is that Mitt Romney was simply too nice a guy. We need to run the biggest pulsating middle finger that we can. That pulsating middle finger is Donald Trump.
You're just that, like, that's just such a wrong analysis.
Yeah,
they ran so many bog standard neocons. Who were the last people standing in the primaries? It was Trump alongside what? Rubio and Ted Cruz?
Yeah,
these were
Ted
copy pasted
Cruz
neocons. Who else? Chris Christie was a little bit unconventional. He was there for a while. And then who else was?
Who was it? There was one more. Oh my god, nobody remembers who he is. There was only like 5 of them. Trump was one. He already said the other ones. God, I don't even know that. I don't even think they said the other guys' names.
Was holding on to the end. Kasich was kind of there. Jeb Bush was there initially. He was probably in the beginning. This idea that they chose
Bush?
Trump? Like, okay.
And so we're going to run him in 2016. And Democrats took away from this that it basically didn't kind of matter who's at the top of the ticket. You could put in Hillary Clinton and she could just inherit the Barack Obama coalition because that was the new Democratic coalition. And then
this feels to me, without going too deep into it, this feels to me like a more narrow argument political strategy. I don't even totally disagree with it. I do think that the Democrats' embrace of demographic triumphalism was pretty disastrous. And I would obviously predictably, but put more weight on what the right is doing. But I think I'm pushing you a little bit into something more fundamental here.
No, but I think
this is where it becomes the fight over Western civilization. Because I would say during this period, you have, when you're talking about Barack Obama with his sort of micro-targeted polling or whatever it is, it's like you have the birther smear emergent in a very potent way. So right, Obama creates reaction as well, just by nature of who he is.
Well,
and
I
what
don't
he
know if
represents.
it's that. I mean, for people who don't, kind of live on the right and imbibe from media of the right during this time, the understanding on the right was that Barack Obama was a much more divisive figure than the left and the traditional media like to say that he was.
Yeah, because you guys said it constantly. Because you guys obsessed over him constantly. No.
And they saw him as a fundamental transformative change agent who did not see the American.
Remember, these are the guys who flipped out that Obama asked for spicy mustard on a sandwich. They literally ran a news story on Fox News about this. Like it was some kind of like wild conspiracy or some shit. Like they were just fucking obsessed with shitting on Obama in any fucking way possible. The fuck's just leaving shit on the floor? Put it in a goddamn box. Sorry. Anyways, back to the unhinged world we live in.
Experiment in a positive light.
Well, you guys said for 8 years that this guy would deliver us to a socialist communist hellhole, and that that Obamacare would bring in old people death panels that would condemn to death every senior citizen in the United States of America. That's what you guys said.
The right, and I sort of agree with this, that he was dissimulating that.
Yeah, so when you hear the stories about like people turning down FEMA money because they think Biden is gonna fucking, you know, steal their homes, you know where all that came from. It came from the Obama era of just constant, what would we call this? Commie fear-mongering? I guess? I don't know, like the Red Scare tactics, I guess, from like back in the day, because they all grew up with them, so they're all still like ingrained into their brains, maybe? I'm not 100% sure though, because some of them, especially the younger generation now, they weren't raised with that mentality. Well, that's not true. They probably were. Now that I think about it. Yeah, they were. God, I feel bad for any kid raised in those households. Jeez. Oof.
That he was dissembling, that when he was saying
there,
that
brother.
All for positive, sunny, optimistic vision of America, that what he actually meant was the Cairo speech, where America was sort of a sinner in the Middle East, and that his view of American history was much more along the lines of what he said about Henry Louis Gates or Trayvon Martin than it was along the lines of there's no white America and black America, there's just Americans. And so the reaction of the right was, okay, this is an interest group-based politics that does not particularly like the founding, and we are going to react to that with Trumpism.
So if you understand Obama...
Nobody wanted Trumpism, bro. Somebody linked this. Even you didn't want Trumpism, bro. Why is he pretending this?
True.
March 4th, 2016.
Nobody did.
I stand against the establishment that sowed the seeds of Trumpism. I stand against the Republican Party that insists that victory matters more than principle, because victory without principle isn't just meaningless. It's counterproductive to my belief system. Hashtag never Trump. He also had a lot of mean things to say about Trump in 2021 after he lost. Again, like, what do you mean? The establishment did not want Donald Trump. Trump just managed to fight his way through the primaries and win. But all the Republican establishment hated this guy.
And Biden, more from the left.
Remember, all these same conservative fucks said they were done supporting Donald Trump. They were never gonna... Ah, fuck. They were done supporting Donald Trump. They didn't want anything to do with him anymore. J6 wasn't cool. And they all said the same thing, my family included, that who all voted for him, and then subsequently again voted for him again this time around. Guess you weren't really done, were you, huh? Oof, that reminds me of the fucking... Oh, God. The writing from Techland from the Dying Light the Beast game. If you haven't played the game or beaten it, I'm about to spoil it. At the end, the GRE lady comes back as well and makes a note to Crane and says, "Oh, looks like our story isn't over yet, Crane." Haha. Like, dude, they were having a field day with that game. And this is like the same thing. Same shit. It's not over. It's not over until we get what we fucking want. And if we gotta use Trump, the guy who tried to insurrect the government, to do it, well, fuck it, right? Why not?
Left. What are the moments in those presidencies that the people on the right are radicalizing, right? That sort of differ from how differently you see them from maybe how I do.
Well, I think that for President Obama, I think the left perceives the Obamacare moment as the moment that the right sort of radicalized. And I don't think that's actually right. I think the bitter clingers comments were a big one. That was in the 2000 election. I think the
what?
That's actually right. I think the bitter clingers comments.
The bitter clingers comments. Oh, the ones that you guys took out of context that even J.D. Vance was able to more accurately summarize. Yeah, he's right. In a way, Ben Shapiro's right. You guys grab onto singular comments, right? You grab onto these one things and then you blast it all over your media. Like Obama is attacking guns and religion, and then that's all you guys fixate on. Like, it's so funny that in a very ironic way, he's accurately summarizing the stupidity of his entire political aisle.
Were a big one. And that was in the 2000 election. I think the Henry Louis Gates statement.
Recently, Professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. was arrested and...
That's just that conservative projection, I call it. They have a very bad habit of projecting the shitty behaviors they have onto the left. they've kind of always have done that. Like, I think it's because they realize the things they want are fucked up, and they're always paranoid that somebody's going to come after them for it. Like, ever since the founding of the country with slavery, it was the same shit. Like, or the Civil War as well. Like, they were paranoid we're going to take your slaves, so they started a war. Like, it's just, like I said earlier, same shit, different century. They can hand wave it and try to, like, window dress it with whatever, oh, policy this or this or that, religion this, I don't fucking, it's all the same shit. They used, I'm sure if we went back in time, they used all the same goddamn arguments to justify slavery and so many other things throughout the years. Like, we're just done. And we should be done, because nothing is going to change unless we do. Like, it's not going to change if, like, one side or the other doesn't snap eventually. It'd be a miracle. But seems like everybody just wants to drive right off that cliff these days. And I think it's all because we all subconsciously understand that fact that, like, the world isn't as good as we want it to be, or as good as it should have been. And probably won't ever be. So, yeah, no, doomer build. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't mean we still shouldn't try. You know? Even if it does suck. Mostly. Doesn't all suck. And the more we try, the more it will not suck. And the more we'll be able to enjoy the world. And that people will be able to, like, live their lives and be able to grow up and not have to worry about stupid, dumb, petty shit. Or, like, politics by the time they're in the fucking high school. Like, high school students shouldn't even have to worry about politics. Probably not even college students either, but here we are. Like, what the fuck?
At his home in Cambridge, what does that incident say to you, and what does it say about race relations in America?
In which he suggested that the officer had acted stupidly, and then sort of linked that with racial discrimination in the past.
I think it's fair to say, number one,
Just this, one of the biggest issues, there's an issue, okay, with, especially going back a little bit more in the past, okay, maybe it's not quite the same today, but I'm sure it's still a lingering issue, okay? When you are black, you will always be black, and you will never escape that blackness, okay? People will always look at you, and people that don't like black people will never like black people. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how prestigious you are. Hopefully I'm not making this up. This was an event where was it a Harvard professor was trying to get into his own house, and somebody called the cops on him, and I think the cops showed up and arrested him, right? Is this an event that I'm remembering? Correct me if I'm wrong. This epitomizes the fear of black people in terms of, like, oh, so you're always an N-word to these guys. And yeah, this was a super heated moment. I think a lot of people felt very strongly about this when it happened. If this is what I'm remembering, Henry Louis Gates. Let me make sure I have.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was just saying.
Professor Strength, filmmaker, served as the Alphonse Fletcher University professor and director at the Hutchins Center for African American Research at Harvard University. He's a trustee of the. Okay. And then he was this here? On July 16, 2009, following a trip to China, Gates returned home to his residence in Cambridge, Massachusetts, near Harvard Square. The front door was jammed. His taxi driver attempted to help him gain entrance. A passerby called police, reporting a possible break-in after describing to 911 an individual forcing the front door open. Cambridge police officers were dispatched. Following a confrontation, Gates was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct. Prosecutors later dropped the charges. Then Barack Obama, I remember this, acted stupidly. He said that they acted stupidly. And people lost their mind over this. Lost their mind over this. So cringe to me how they went so ape with this. Sorry.
Acted stupidly, and then sort of linked that with racial discrimination in the past.
I think it's fair to say, number one, any of us would be pretty angry. Number two, that the Cambridge police acted stupidly in arresting somebody when there was already proof that they were in their own home. And number three, what I think we know separate and apart from this incident is...
Was there a comic or a meme? Is it a Dave Chappelle thing I'm thinking of? This N-word broke in, and look at this. He hung up pictures of his own family here. Was this a Dave Chappelle?
It was.
And number three, what I think we know separate and apart from this incident is that there's a long history...
Oh my god, can we... Please play the clip. If he doesn't play the clip, I will, dude. It's such a fucking good skit. Oh wait, no. Was it? No, it was Dave Chappelle. Oh my god, that's a really old Dave Chappelle clip. Jesus. It looks like this hammer broke in and pictures of him and his family everywhere. Oh my god, dude. Dave Chappelle, jeez. Fuck. Probably one of the funniest skits he ever made. Just the way he said it too. His voice back then too, just bro, he swung into that shit, dude. Those were the days. Oh fuck.
Free in this country of African Americans and Latinos being stopped by law enforcement disproportionately. And that's just a fact.
The Trayvon Martin situation was quite polarizing for sure.
But my main message is to the parents of Trayvon Martin. You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
The Ferguson riots.
Like, imagine, like, going to any Obama speech, and these are radicalizing you as a conservative. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is out here saying the most unhinged ever, constantly, and these clowns are like, oh, well, you know, that's just Trump. He just jokes, LOL. Like, he just, we're taking, like, this is the party of we take him seriously, not literally, over and over and over again.
Those, I think, would be sort of the biggest examples of...
And those are his, in an interview, sit-down interview with Ezra Klein. These are Ben Shapiro's...
This is what I was saying earlier, by the way.
Biggest examples of why they didn't like him. Not even policy-oriented, not even government-oriented, theory of government, nothing like that. Just these comments on racial stuff.
Barack Obama kind of setting off the right, so to speak.
It's interesting you choose those. I mean,
those are a few words, singular statements. They weren't followed up by any aggressive executive action, DOJ action, crazy policies, sweeping changes to the structure of government. Doesn't that make you sound kind of unhinged, Ben?
mostly for rhetorical examples. It's like, take the bitter cleaners comment, because I actually think about this one a lot, where he gets caught on this, he's on tape.
He runs a small town in Pennsylvania. One of the small towns in the Midwest. Yeah, they do justice. They've been going on for 25 years and nothing's replaced it. And they've gone through Clinton administration and Bush administration. And each successive administration has said that somehow these communities are going to regenerate, and they have not. The fact of them that they get better, they claim to guns or religion or intimidate towards people who aren't like them.
Sorry, you guys are saying 2008 Mike. This is like secretly recorded from some donor dinner. By the way, Obama's correct here, and J.D. Vance's analysis of this was correct as well. And I think that Republicans would even agree with the sentiment behind this, right? Is policies like NAFTA, things that have made America as a whole much better off, have left particular communities incredibly damaged and incredibly demotivated. They don't have good jobs anymore. They don't have the ability to pursue, and from jobs, they don't have the ability to pursue families, lifestyles, things that they could be proud of to contributing. That some of these communities have been destroyed by globalization. That they weren't able to participate in an America that resembled the America from the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? That the America had changed or morphed in a way that they weren't able to participate as much anymore. And so now, yeah, of course, they cling to their gods and their guns, or they cling to religions and guns, or they are anti-immigrant, or they're afraid of other things, right? Remember, in that J.D. Vance interview, even he agreed with this, right? And most Republican cities are like, oh, sure, if you phrase it a little differently. But even taken as this is phrased, it's not even that bad. But the media, the right-wing media, ran with, Obama says that all Republicans just cling to gods and their God and their guns. And they just like made it the most ridiculous hit piece ever.
It's kind of true.
Intimidate towards people who aren't like them.
The Chappelle
Hoping with the world that you didn't want.
that.
Oh.
Like these. That chip didn't even know he could race.
Stay mad. Oh, he didn't play the clip. Yes. Also, that's so true. This is exactly what I was saying. Like, they cling to their guns and their god because they can't cope with the world that they don't want. Like, gay marriage being allowed, or black people being unsegregated. Like, this is exactly why they're fucking... they do that shit. It's why they're pro-Second Amendment.
See you later.
But he's about to play the clip, and I'm so happy.
Scared of him. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh.
Like these. That chip didn't even know he could race. I'm not saying I don't like police. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm just scared of them. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we want to call them too. Somebody broke into my house once. It's a good time to call them, but The house is too nice. It ain't a real nice house, but they never believe I live in it. He's still here. Oh my God. Open and shut case, Johnson. I saw this once before when I was a rookie. Apparently they broke in and hung up pictures of his family everywhere. Well, let's sprinkle some crack on him and get out of here.
Now the modern iteration of that joke was that one cop ever charged where she went to the wrong house, I think, and then when she got in, a black guy was living there and she shot and killed him? Whatever. What was the resolution to that? She was charged? Well, that's good at least. Wait, she wasn't? She got 10 years for first-degree murder. Okay. Oh, Amber Geiger got 5 years. She's the sheriff now. Have I not heard of that? Wait, what do you mean? Have you not heard of that?
Wait.
Cop goes to wrong house, kills black guy. Wait, it's apartment.
She's a sheriff.
I shouldn't be laughing. It's not funny.
We start with breaking news this midday. We are learning more information about the Dallas police officer who investigators say walked into the wrong apartment and shot 26-year-old Botham Jean. This happened at Southside Flats on South Lamar Street. Officials say Jean died at the hospital. Thanks for joining us this Friday afternoon for News 8 Midday. I'm Alicia Laventure. Now, our Chris Sagi has been on the scene of the shooting on South Lamar since early this morning, and he brings us this report breaking down what happened.
A Dallas police officer lives here at the Southside Flats and was returning home after working a full shift last night around 10 o'clock when she was trying to get into what she thought was her apartment, but she was mistaken, and the mistakes continued when she shot the man inside. He would eventually die. The victim is 26-year-old Botham Jean. We talked to people who live here at the Southside Flats, and they said this morning they could see blood in the hallway and in the stairwell. We're not sure the exact details of how or why the officer was trying to get into the wrong apartment or why she felt the need to fire her gun, but that officer is at Dallas PD headquarters, which is just a block away, being questioned. The police department and the district attorney's office are part of this investigation, and they will have to determine what are the appropriate charges ultimately filed against the officer. Chris Sottike, News 8 Midday.
And this midday, we're learning more about the man killed in his own apartment, Botham Jean. We've heard nothing but great things from his family, his alma mater, and Jean, and he was just 20. And there's several comments here. Now, we're learning that Botham went to Harding University. He made
But, sorry.
It's like, to me, if you compare that to things that get said, even say to Hillary Clinton's deplorables comment, right? He basically says, look, you have people in towns that these towns have lost everything. They've lost their jobs. They've lost the plants that employed everybody, that they have been, like, their fundamental dignity and livelihood has been taken away from them. And yeah, in that condition, people get bitter. And then he does say, like, they cling to guns and religion, which I think which is
xenophobia, right?
And xenophobia. It's actually very different.
You're such an empath, right? I mean, the way that the right reads that is him sneering at those people. Meaning,
but that's clearly not what he meant. He's such an empath, or maybe he's just not a illiterate dip. What do you mean? You go into some of these small towns in Pennsylvania, and like a lot of small towns in the Midwest, the jobs have been gone now for 25 years, and nothing's replaced them. How else could you read that statement besides these places are getting f***ed? And then they fell through the Clinton administration and the Bush administration, and each successive administration has said that somehow these communities are going to regenerate, and they have not. So it's not surprising then that they get bitter, they cling to gun or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them, or anti-immigrant sentiment or anti-trade sentiment as a way to explain their frustrations. Like, in what world does this read, you have to be an empath to figure out what the f*** he meant here? Like, holy shit.
It's like, to me, if you compare that to things that get said, even say to Hillary Clinton's deplorables comment, right? He basically says, look, you have people in towns that these towns have lost everything. They've lost their jobs. They've lost the plants that employed everybody, that they have been, like, their fundamental dignity and livelihood has been taken away from them. And yeah, in that condition, people get bitter. And then he does say, like, they cling to guns and religion, which I think which is
xenophobia, right?
And xenophobia. It's actually very different.
You're such an empath, right? I mean, the way that the right reads that is him sneering at those people. Meaning, if they only weren't xenophobic and religious and hollowed out by life, then they would totally buy into what I'm selling them.
Like this is not good faith. I hate Ezra Klein. I'm sorry, I don't hate Ezra. I love Ezra. I'm sorry. This is not good faith. This isn't real. This isn't even the same Ben Shapiro of like 4 years ago or 8 years ago, or 12 years ago. This is not a real interpretation of that statement. Now we're being asked to pretend. Who did I watch last time that did this? Oh, it was Aaron and Pisco. Now we're being asked to pretend that this is a legitimate reading of that comment. It's so stupid to suggest this causal relation that Obama was talking about goes both ways. What a stupid and unbelievably bad faith, like intentionally dumb reading of this.
Xenophobic and religious and hollowed out by life, then they would totally buy into what I'm selling them. And I think that this also meshes very well with what the right tends to
He's saying that we have failed them, right? That they wouldn't just buy into what he's selling them. He's saying that, like, the left has, like, abandoned these
people.
Right,
but I will not fail these people. And if I were given the power, then I would fix all of their problems. And really,
fix them how, Ben? Fix them how? By getting rid of their racism or by providing them with jobs? He just said every successive administration failed those people. Fix them how?
If they only understood how much I could fix their problems, and what's keeping them from doing that, the reason they won't embrace me, it's what I would say is this is the mirror image of how the left viewed what Ronnie was saying about the 47% of people who would never vote for him. So people on the right read that like, okay, there's a bunch of people who aren't paying taxes, they're unlikely to vote for a person who's going to lower taxes. And people on the left read that as he's sneering at people who are not paying taxes. And so I think that there is that element here.
It's also the other couple examples you give are for just being about race, right? And again, racial here.
Yes, like again, the whole history is very, very clear. Racial relations in this country got markedly worse in 2013, 2014, 2015.
But is that because Barack Obama should have been more positive on what happened to Trayvon Martin or what happened in a very different way to Henry Louis Gates, or because it was hard for people to hear, like, yeah, if you're a black man and you see these, your interpretation is, yeah, like, we get hassled by the cops often for no reason in a way that white people don't really understand, or my son could have been Trayvon, right?
You know, when Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago. And when you think about why, in the African-American community at least, there's a lot of pain around what happened here, I think it's important to recognize that the African-American community is looking at this issue through a set of experiences and a history that doesn't go away.
Like, wow, what a crazy offensive statement he just made there. Unbelievable how disgusting that statement was that Obama made. But what would happen is one or two words for this would get clipped and then ran nonstop on O'Reilly, on Hannity. Glenn Beck would connect it to the communists. Rush Limbaugh would amplify it to the morning crowd. Michael Savage would scream at callers talking about it, trying to join the comments, and then the conservative media would amplify this nonstop until they had you convinced that they wanted all of you to be turned into Zimmermans and arrested just for bravely defending innocent people from evil Trayvon Martin. It's just like so stupid.
There are very few African-American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me.
I understand that is also an expression of pain, right? An effort to try to, like, build a bridge. It's very hard for me to imagine, and Donald Trump doing the Henry Louis Gates, the beer summit, as it got called, where he had the cop engaged to the White House at the same time. It's hard for me when I look back on that.
Oh, wait, I didn't even remember that. Obama invited both the cop and the... President Obama called both men on July 24th and invited them to the White House to discuss the situation over beers. Both men accepted the offer. Upon accepting, Gates stated in an email to the Boston Globe, "My entire academic career has been based on improving race relations, not exacerbating them. I am hopeful that my experience will lead to greater sensitivity to issues of racial profiling in the criminal justice system." One of Gates' lawyers, Harvard Law professor Charles Ogletree, a former professor of Obama, stated, "I think the president is taking the right approach by trying to make sure we move forward. He's always had the ability to negotiate difficult conversations, and the steps today are an important step in the right direction. I think the president has given his assessment, which makes a lot of sense, and however you feel about it, has reduced the temperature and allowed everyone to move forward in a constructive way." When asked for his impression of Crawley, the cop, Gates joked, "We hit it off right from the very beginning when he's not arresting you, Sergeant Crawley. It's a really likable guy." Like, imagine this. Like, it's not, there's no comparison, bro.
called where you had the cop and gates to the White House at the same time. It's hard for me.
Destiny, whether or not it's true, there's literally no benefit in telling white people how much easier they have it. It literally just makes people spiteful. But there's two things that's so stupid about this statement. One, like, Obama wasn't even trying to, he didn't even say anything in that statement about like white privilege. He was saying, listen, you're black, here's some bullshit experiences you might have to go through, right? But then even on the flip side of that, when Obama is trying to explain why white people in certain communities might feel like, right? They felt like they got abandoned by NAFTA and the Clintons. They felt like their jobs were gone. They were never coming back. Every administration. That's also not okay. You can't explain that either. Like, what is he allowed to say? It's crazy.
When I look back on that, and the beer summit in particular, to hear like that's what radicalized you all.
Yes.
Yeah, crazy, right?
And the reason is because the implicit promise of Barack Obama was the worst conflict in the history of America, which is the racial history of the United States, which is truly horrifying.
He's about to cite some shit. Wait, I think Ben, hold on. Somebody find me if Rush Limbaugh, called Obama the Great Unifier. Because I know what he's about to say, because I listened to Rush Limbaugh say this over and over again, that Obama was supposed to be our first like post-racial president, that all the race relations were supposed to be solved. Obama promised that all of the issues, post-racial America, I think Limbaugh would say this statement over and over and over again.
Was the worst conflict in the history of America, which is the racial history of the United States, which is truly horrifying. That in his person, he was basically going to be the capstone.
Ugh. It's so funny that I was just literally talking about this earlier, that they're so self-aware of this. That is a fucking panda. I need it. Sorry. I want the panda. But no, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier with the whole, the world hasn't really changed. There's still a lot of people who are upset with the world and where it went. And it's so wild how conservatives can address that when they want to. When it's convenient for them. Or their narrative. Like, shit pisses me off, dude. So you can address that there is an issue there, you just don't care to fix it. Like, this, whatever they said in the beginning about liberals have the leave the fence, or sorry, liberals take up the fence without figuring out why it's there, and conservatives like try to investigate to figure out why it's there. That is just certainly not true. That is completely reversed, if anything. Like, conservatives do not give a fuck what was there before. They just want to make money. And then it's the other people who are like, well, what was there before? And like, you see that projection I was talking about earlier come up to play a little bit, where they try to like shift onto us that we're the ones who don't believe in private property or whatever, when like we're the ones criticizing them for stealing people's private property. There's a reason why they can go from like pro-Israel to anti-Israel to pro-Israel, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They don't really care. It's whatever will sell them the most money that day. That's pretty much it.
Of the great movement toward Martin Luther King's dream. And when
nobody on the left, I don't remember at least anybody saying this. Maybe did Obama ever say this? I'm going to solve racism. I'm going to be the end of all of racism in the United States. Give me a break.
The end
game. Oh, great unifier. He says it here. Now this is the great unifier. Limbaugh told.
Imagine if Obama was the end game. Oh God, what a better world we'd be in. Oh gosh.
Listeners, just afternoon today, this is the man who's going to unify everybody and usher in a new era of bipartisanship and love. Limbaugh has said that he wants Obama's socialist policies to fail. I would be honored if the drive-by media headlined me all day long. Limbaugh, I hope Obama fails. Somebody's got to say it.
Instead, things seem to move in the opposite direction, which was, well, it turns out that black people in America are inherently victimized by a system, by a white supremacist system that puts black people underfoot. And my son could have been Trayvon. And people on the right saw that as like, well, but that's not true. You aren't.
Oh my God. Like, this is like demonic Like, no one can draw attention to any problem in the gentlest of ways. You understand how fucking snowflakey this sounds right now? Are you serious? How much of a fucking snowflake you are by saying this? Like, oh, black dude is like, I look at Trayvon and I feel like, that could have been my kid. Oh, so all black people are oppressed forever by a white supremacist organization called the United States of America, and there's no hope and no chance, even though you're wealthy than all. Like, oh my God, bro, are you serious? I remember this, Megyn Kelly, yesterday, right? This was unhinged.
We don't feel like ourselves. We haven't felt like ourselves in a while. And I'm sorry to get political, but I'm just going to be honest. We haven't felt like
By the way, because people like Wick would be saying things like, oh, well, maybe Joe Biden and the left, maybe they went too hard on the Republicans, or maybe they were, Biden could have phrased the thing or worded it better. Well, apparently all the attacks on Joe Biden didn't work, because now we're hearing more about Obama. Now we're going back to Obama. What did Tulsi dig out of the closet in order to save us from the Epstein files? Russiagate with Obama and Hillary Clinton. Who's the fault that we blame now? I guess the Biden attacks just weren't landing, so now we're talking about Obama again? That's
political, but I'm just going to be honest. We haven't felt like ourselves since Barack Obama. I just think he was such a slick snake. He was this affable guy who was like wearing good suits and looked the part.
This is a humanity test for you, by the way, and a racism test for you, and it's just so unbelievable to look at Obama and think, wow, like it's the same thing they do with Joe Biden. Though. It's the same joke, right? This is the same play, just with different actors, right? Obama or Joe Biden radicalized all of us. He radicalized, the shootings. Oh, really? Biden Where's the picture? Was it Gemstar that drew that one? I heard you loud and clear, Biden. Let's go. Like, seriously? That's the guy radicalizing us? Obama is the one radicalizing people, but never Trump. Never anything Trump says. Ben Shapiro, supposedly one of the smartest right-wing commenters in all of U.S. politics, when asked how did Obama radicalize the right, the 3 of the 4 examples that he gives are small statements, the most non-offensive statements possible that Obama said about race relation crime in the United States. Really?
Sounded the part and dressed the part, but was so divisive in his messaging. The left, they look at you like when you say this, they don't know what you're talking about. It's like, because you don't pay attention to the other half of the country. You only pay attention to your absurd news sources, which spin and spin and spin to protect Democrats, especially if they're named Obama. He's the one who started to inject race where no one had been doing it. He's the one who started to use his pen and the phone to shove things down our throat that we didn't want. He's the one who shoved through an entitlement on our healthcare and our personal doctor visits that he promised he wouldn't mess with, and then he did, really hurting people, causing massive anger and open lies. He never missed an opportunity to twist the knife on the racial issue. He would do it subtly and in his own way, but it was very clear what he was doing. He never...
Like, this person sounds like somebody being gang stalked, right? You understand that, right? This person sounds like a schizo. Like, what's going on? This guy, he's been all over me, stalking me. Like, which guy? He shows up at the gym. I see him around my apartment complex. He's looked at me several times going through my hallway. Damn, he stalked you to your apartment complex? Yes. Do you know where he lives? Down the hallway from me. Oh. How do you know he's stalking you at the gym? He's there every time I go. Do you go at the same time? Yes, but he's still there looking at me. Really? Like staring at you? Has he ever talked to you? No, but I know that he wants to. Have you ever caught him staring at you? No, he only does it when my back is turned. And I know he's doing the most insidious stuff ever. I know that he's rigging the machines. He's adding weight to my bar when I'm not looking. It's like, you sound schizophrenic. You sound crazy.
He never...
Like, the United States politics had no race at all involved until Obama brought it in.
We're scared.
Flashback to McCain in 2000. McCain ran in 2008, right? Or was it McCain 2012? Wait, did McCain Palin run? It was 2000. Okay, yeah, Romney was the second time. Okay.
We're scared of an Obama presidency, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, sorry.
I'm concerned about someone that cohorts with domestic terrorists such as Ayers. I have to tell you,
Dan Ayers, that's the Weather Underground. I only know that because I remember hearing my mom repeat this conspiracy constantly. Obama was working with terrorist groups and shit time and invited this guy to the White House because he wanted to blow up all of... Oh, wait, is it Bill Ayers or whatever? This guy was related. He was with the Weather Underground, right? I just remember hearing that Weather Underground comment so many times.
Is a decent person and a person that you do not have to be scared as President of the United States. Now, I just...
Like...
What?
Not have to be scared.
He didn't say that Obama had good policies, that we agree with his policy. He just said you don't have to be scared of the black man. I'm sorry, Barack Obama being President of the United States.
We don't have to be scared
domestic terrorists such as Ayers.
I have to tell you, he is a decent person and a person that you do not have to be scared as President of the United States. Now, Now, look, I
got to ask you a question. I do not believe in, I can't trust Obama. I have read about him, and he's an Arab. He's not, no.
That was enough back then to not trust somebody, by the way.
No, man.
I remember this clip from so long ago. Oh my god. I haven't seen this clip since like 2017. 2018? Jesus Christ, when was this? Oh, it was 26. Wait, what? 2006? Jesus. Yeah, like exactly my point I was saying earlier. This random lady. She's I can't trust him. He's Arab. Oh, fuck. Why? Well, I mean, we get why, because of the war on terror at the time and, everything with Iraq and Middle East and fuck. About half a dozen other fucking conflicts we've been getting into since the what? Fucking 60s, 70s? Jeez. Yeah. But no, there are still very much people like this who are just bought into a worldview and they are just incapable of leaving it. As much as we would all benefit from them progressing, for some reason, some people are just... They will bleed or die before they change. It just is what it is. The unfortunate part is, it's a lot more people than we're even willing to admit to. That is the scary part. So.
He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues, and that's...
This is the kind of leadership that you would need to see in your party. People like McCain, people in the media, You would need to see people like this. People like to spin this and meme this. I can't tell if you guys are retarded or not, if you're just memeing, where he's like, no, he's not an Arab, he's a decent man. He wasn't saying, no, he's not an Arab, he was just saying, no, I know Obama. He's a decent man, he's a family man. That's what he's saying. But
What this campaign is all about.
Yeah, McCain did nothing wrong here. Yeah, actually, we covered this pretty well, like talking about how, you know, hey, I've worked with this guy. He's not a Muslim. He's not Muslim, okay? He is an American. He's born and raised American. Like, he has American values in him. Though he's on the other side of the aisle. Like, when they, by the way, when I say that, they say because when conservatives say Muslim, they're thinking of like Osama bin Laden, death to America, Muslim. By the way, which is why I say that this is where like McCain kind of comes in and like smooths them over. Of like, whoa, listen, he's not Muslim. Okay, calm down, lady.
He's not. Thank you. Thank you.
For the first time, we had a president who weighed in on legal cases before they played out. We never did that. That was a taboo that had never been crossed before him. And Donald Trump was the reason Barack Obama. Reverse that. Barack Obama was the reason Donald Trump came about, that he was born as a political figure. They say Trump's divisive. He was the antidote. He was the answer to the divisiveness of Barack Obama. And we just haven't felt like ourselves for years now.
anyway, what a crazy... Somebody said that the comments on this are... make you feel more sane. Ezra, the leaders of the Republican Party declaring war are not the same as rando Twitter accounts posting memes. No significant figures elected anything of this kind. Terrible, weak equivalents. Oh, no. Does Ezra both sides of this? Well, I'll keep watching, but the fact that Ben never actually answered the question about what his red line would be from Trump. They never answer this because they can't. The reason why they can't... Well, I'll wait till I watch it. The reason why they won't answer it is because they know that they have none. And they don't know what they can say that Trump won't go over the line on.
And my son could have been Trayvon. And people on the right saw that as like, well, but that's not true. You were an upper-class black man who was living in the White House. And unless your son was mistaken for a prowler going around at night in a neighborhood, then no, that actually wouldn't happen to your son. In fact, you have two black daughters, and that stuff has never happened to him. So this sort of Michael Brown and Ferguson, the idea that when the president went out and he said that people wouldn't just make this up, right? And it turns out actually that a lot of it was made up. Right?
It kind of sounds like the interpretation of Obama, at least to you, was that if he's elected, we'll agree we've gotten past all this. Like, it's supposed to make us feel better. And then when it didn't, like, that was understood as the betrayal of a promise.
Well, I mean, again, that is how I
feel better. If he's elected, we'll agree we've gotten past all this. Like, it's supposed to make...
A lot of it was made up.
It kind of sounds like the interpretation of Obama, at least to you, was that if he's elected, we'll agree we've gotten past all this. Like, it's supposed to make us feel better. And then when it didn't, like, that was understood as the betrayal of a promise.
Well, I mean, again, that is how I think most Americans saw it, including black Americans. That was a widespread sentiment.
That black people in the United States thought that with the black president, the racial issues had been solved? I am so sorry. I would like to formally rescind every single compliment I've ever given Ben Shapiro on his intelligence. Whether he ever was smart or not, it's all gone. That I can't... What an unbelievable statement. What? What an unbelievably stupid statement. This guy's mind was rotted by conservative media. I know it was because we listened to the same conservative media. My God.
And that is how I think most Americans saw it, including black Americans. That was a widespread sentiment, not just among white Americans, among black Americans, is that something had gone radically wrong in 2013, 2014. So something happened. This was an argument that was made by legacy media a lot, which was that the real reason people were so exercised about Obamacare wasn't because they really cared about Obamacare. It was really because there were a lot of bitter claimers out there who, were clinging to God and guns and xenophobia, and they didn't like the black president.
What? That God and guns quote was from 2008. He wasn't even president yet. Wait, what is this guy talking about?
It's really because there were a lot of bitter claimers out there who, were clinging to God and guns and xenophobia, and they didn't like the black president. And if a white president pushed Obamacare, then probably they probably had some problems with it, but they wouldn't have gone crazy like this. I mean, these people. I mean,
I can tell you this actually. You're saying there's evidence on this. Like, there was a lot of polling on this on how attitudes on race correlate with attitudes about Obamacare.
I mean, that may be the case, but the point is that the perception by people who were not actually picking on Barack Obama because of his race, or picking on him because of his politics, was that suddenly everything was being refracted through a racial lens.
Wait.
Barack Obama because of his race. The point is that the perception by people who were not actually picking on Barack Obama because of his race, or picking on him because of his politics, was that suddenly everything was being refracted through a racial lens.
You literally just said that your biggest problems with Obama, you brought up healthcare as one example, and every other example was just a Barack Obama comment about like a thing that had happened in the United States. How can you claim that it was his politics that you were opposed to? Ezra should push him policy-wise. What are some things that you were super opposed of then? You said you're a hawkish man, right? Wasn't the Obama State Department, wasn't the Obama government like fairly hawkish, right? You remember the whole Libya? Remember that? Like, was the Obama, White House not relatively forward, like stuff related to Syria? Like, would you want it more? Like, I hope they talk policy more.
How do you understand the birther thing?
So the way I understand the birther thing, in terms of, you mean the public resonance of the birther thing on the right?
I mean that you have a black president, and there is a wildfire-like theory that he's actually born in Kenya. Dinesh D'Souza does a whole movie about this, or documentary, whatever.
To be fair, Dinesh doesn't actually claim that Obama was born in Kenya.
Donald Trump is a prime pusher of this,
yes.
right? That felt...
So that's a combination of two things, I think. Really, if you're going to try to intellectualize it again, you're intellectualizing.
Well, I'm not trying to intellectualize it. What I am... Donald Trump is a prime pusher of this, right? That felt...
That's a combination of two things, I think. Really, if you're going to try to intellectualize it again, you're intellectualizing.
Well, I'm not trying to intellectualize it. What I am saying is that, like, people were not saying that Bill Clinton was not born here. They need to show his birth certificate. They need to prove his Americanness.
Well, so I will say that I think that part of it was the same instinct that led people to say that Donald Trump was a Russian agent, meaning I don't...
Dude, I can't. I'm going to hate Ezra. I don't want to hate Ezra. Don't make me hate Ezra. Please don't make me hate Ezra. This is the conversation that I had with Ben Shapiro, except even gentler.
understand where this person is coming from. I don't understand what their philosophy is. I don't understand why he's thinking the way he's thinking. It must be that he's not from here.
You don't understand why people might think that Donald Trump was lukewarm with Russia after he lied about the meeting that several of his campaign surrogates, and I think his son, or was it Kushner, had a meeting with a foreign Russian agent inside of his own tower and lied about what that meeting was about until the media dug through it and finally got them to admit that it was to dig up dirt on political opponents. You think that it's the same thing driving people to wonder about Trump being a Russian agent when Russia literally hacked DNC servers and had the emails as our headlines for 6 months or whatever in an election cycle? When Donald Trump publicly called for Russia to leak the 30,000 emails saying they'd be rewarded greatly by the press? When Roger Stone was admitted to communicating with the actual Russian hackers on Twitter at the time the media releases it to the press? Like, how is this even remotely? You can say, if you want, you can say that I think that the Russia stuff was ultimately nothing. Fine. Stupid, but fine. But to claim that that's the same type of thing? That people that thought that the Russia with Trump was really weird compared to that's the same thing as the people who were obsessing over Barack Obama's race or whatever?
Intellectualizing again. You're intellectualizing.
Well, I'm not trying to intellectualize it. What I am saying is that like people were not saying that Bill Clinton was not born here. They need to show his birth certificate. They need to prove his Americanness.
Well, so I will say that I think that part of it was the same instinct that led people to say that Donald Trump was a Russian agent. Meaning, I don't understand where this person is coming from. I don't understand what their philosophy is. I don't understand why he's thinking the way he's thinking. It must be that he's not from here. So I think that there was some of that. In the same way that the left did I don't understand who this Trump guy is. I don't understand why he's saying what he's saying. It must be that he's a paid Russian agent. So which similarly spread like wildfire. It was not race-based, right? And then I do think that there was an element of he has a very,
please, bro, kill me.
Eclectic background. When he was growing up, he grew up in Hawaii. He spent time in Pakistan. He resented injuries from my father.
What's Donald Trump's background? The billionaire real estate developer? Like, what?
Or about his feelings of kinship in Kenya. And then his first address as president of the United States, he goes to Cairo for the so-called apology tour.
Assalamu alaikum.
Where he's talking about the evils of American policy in the Middle East.
The relationship between Islam and the West includes centuries of coexistence and cooperation, but also conflict and religious wars. More recently, tension has been fed by colonialism that denied rights and opportunities to many Muslims, and a Cold War in which Muslim-majority countries were too often treated as proxies without regard to their own aspirations.
And people go, well, this doesn't seem like super, kind of homegrown. Now, I'm saying this as somebody
to strengthen relationships with countries in the Middle East?
Who never bought into the brother crap and thought that was horseshit from the beginning. But if you're asking me where the sentiment comes from, I think it came much more from the ideology as opposed to the race. Now, again, is there a comic book background there? So can you make the argument that there was a racial component? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think that was the sort of predominant thing that drove it? I think I think there was a desperate hope, frankly, by a lot of Republicans that if you could find out that he didn't have a birth certificate, then you would never run against him in 2012. And that would be real convenient. The sort of predominant thing that drove it. I actually don't. I think there was a desperate hope, frankly, by a lot of Republicans that if you could find out that he didn't have a birth certificate, then you would never run against him in 2012. And that would be real convenient, wouldn't it?
What an unbelievable hope here. Also, he says by a lot of Republicans, this was driven by Trump. Not the Republican Party. This was Trump that brought this to everybody's attention in 2012 and then again in 2016.
Turns out he's not American citizen. You don't have to worry about it. And there's news on this by John McCain in 2008. He's born on a foreign military base. That means he's not American citizen. There's discussion about Marco Rubio. Not even downplay it.
Not even remotely to the same level, but okay, Chief.
I didn't take off with him the way they did with Obama.
Well, Obama was also the most singular political figure of any lifetime by this point.
In today's not relevant, but
we're competitive business. This guy actually sped it up, and it's fucking annoying, man.
Environment, the edge goes to those who push harder, move faster, and level up every tool in their arsenal. T-Mobile knows all about that. They're now the best network according to the experts at Ookla Speed Test, and they're using that network to launch Supermobile, the first and only business plan to combine intelligent performance, built-in security, and seamless satellite coverage. That's your business supercharged. Learn more at supermobile.com. Seamless coverage compatible with most other areas in the US.
So a lot of the book is a defense of Western civilization from its enemies. You talk a lot about Western civilization.
Okay, he got it. Never mind.
How do you describe it?
So the way that I describe it in this book, and I give a sort of more fulsome definition in an earlier book that I did called The Right Side of History, is the tension between Jerusalem and Athens. Again, not my original construct. That's a division that goes very early on to Tertullian. But the sort of idea of a biblical heritage combined with Greek reason and the tension between them. They don't easily fit together. And so what you see over the course of Western history is this tension. Sometimes it moves in the direction of sort of biblical theocracy, which you can see in European history. Sometimes it moves more in the direction of reason. But if either comes in word from the other, you end up with a pretty bad thing. If you end up with like a full biblical theocracy, bad. If you end up with a fully amoral, rationality-based system, also bad, which is the history of the mid-19th to mid-20th century. And so the history of Western civilization is a symbiosis between those two factors. But the basic principles of Western civilization that I think are the most important, at the very least, that I discuss in the book, are things like equal rights before the law, private property, freedom of mind, freedom of thought, freedom of religion.
A bunch of the book is a defense of this. When I tried to think through who's the enemy in this book, right? A lot of it to me was the academic left, let's call it. And I mean, you talk about Edward Said, you talk about Fanon, and a sort of intellectual culture that understands Western civilization more in terms of its sins than its successes, that is focused on the Nazis, focused on slavery in America, Jim Crow. This sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier, that I think a lot of the debate, Trump is very much part of this. This is one which is not post-ideological.
Yeah.
It's about, are we fundamentally good or are we fundamentally bad?
Right, no, that's right. Good but flawed, or evil, but sometimes we do the right thing. I think that's right.
I mean, in your schema of Western civilization, I think I just sort of understood it from what you said. But these are big things, right? The Nazis, a lot of 19th century, 20th century wars in Europe, the slavery in America, Jim Crow. Where do they fit?
Well, I mean, they fit. First of all, there's sort of two contexts. There's the global context of all of these events happening. There's the global context of fascism in the 1930s, if you're going to talk about Nazi Germany, in which you also have to include Eastern fascism, because Japan was a fascist state that killed somewhere between 20 and 30 million people.
Lots of fascism in the 1930s.
Yes, exactly. And not unique to Western civilization. And slavery also not unique to Western civilization.
But in that way, reason is not unique to Western civilization. I mean, there's a lot of...
I didn't say that reason is unique. I said the tension between sort of biblical values and reason is unique to Western civilization and manifests in different historical ways. And I can argue that those are not contingent, that they could have arisen anywhere, but I think that's kind of a difficult argument. You can make the argument Magna Carta could have happened anywhere, but it didn't happen just anywhere. It happened in a particular time, at a particular place, for a particular reason or set of reasons, and then it evolved in a particular direction. So, like it or not, that's how history happened. And so acknowledging that's how history happened, so maybe that has something to do with, all the wonderful things that we see in our civilization today, I think would be a good move. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't acknowledge sins of the past by any stretch of the imagination. We absolutely should, and we should work.
I feel like, I don't know my history well enough to say 100%.
History,
but I feel like
he says,
you go through these like stages of evolution in society. When we talk about all the great stuff, when we talk about like, reason and electricity and all the inventions and the modern governance and everything, you can say that these happened in places that were like Christianity was, but like, didn't a lot of this stem from the age of like Enlightenment and everything, which was largely kind of a rejection of the more fundamental Christian values and more kind of like secular approaches to thought and arrangement of society? Like, there's a reason why the United States of America is not really a Christian country as laid out in our founding documents or anything. Like,
true.
I wouldn't say maybe that religious values had nothing to do with that, like at least the values there or whatever, but I feel like skipping over that is a tad deceptive, I think.
That doesn't mean that we shouldn't acknowledge sins of the past by any stretch of the imagination. We absolutely should, and then we should work to fight the obliteration of attempts not to remember that sort of stuff. It's why you see, I think, a lot of, not to get into sort of contemporary politics, but you see a bizarre amount of arguing past one another on some of these issues. President Trump, when he's talking about how slavery ought to be taught at the Smithsonian, for example.
We want the museums to treat our country fairly. We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner, which is what many of them, not all of them, but many of them are doing. Our museums have an obligation to represent what happened in our country over the years, good and bad, but what happened over the years in an accurate way.
I think that the way the left interpreted him talking about that was saying slavery shouldn't be taught at all at the Smithsonian. The way to write it
in an accurate way. Yeah, okay, bud.
Interpreted that was, we should talk for sure about slavery at the Smithsonian, then we should talk about how slavery ended. We should talk about the Civil War.
Bro can't even remember what happened this morning. You think I'm gonna trust you on what happened like 100 years ago? No.
We should talk about what was the rest of the globe doing about slavery at that time.
Like, that's such an unfathomably charitable reading of everything that's being said there. Well, like, give me a fucking break. Oh my God, it's such a joke. These are the people that we're supposed to have honest conversations with. Like, he's not a real interlocutor here. This is an act. Is Ezra aware of it? Like, this guy's putting on a play for you to defend his political movement and to defend his business.
Yeah, a little bit of comparison would be good, because to be grateful for the things you have, you also have to look at, how things are going for everybody else at the time.
You touched on this at the beginning. But what is a scavenger to you? Who are the scavengers?
So the scavengers are groups, ideologies, people who are fundamentally driven by envy and therefore externalize all the problems in their life toward a system that they blame as oppressive.
How does this not map on? They're driven by envy. What does Donald Trump talk about more than anything else? It's about how everybody else is stealing from you. Other countries are stealing from us. That's why we have to get rid of the trade deficits. Immigrants are stealing from you.
This is, literally what I was partly talking about earlier was that, again, as the same year you voted in a black man, kids like me were getting the fruitcake beaten out of us. Like, you don't get to play victim. Because you have never been a victim. Not really. I don't even think as a Jewish man this dude has actually gone through that much shit. I'd be shocked if this guy got his ass beat for being Jewish. I've got my ass beat for being half gay before I even knew I was half gay. Like, but yet they play the victim. They play the fucking, oh, we're being oppressed, we're being canceled, we're being silenced. Yeah. Because you're fucking assholes. Boo-hoo. Stop being assholes. No? You'd rather throw an insurrection? Oh, okay. Sure. Alright. Okay. We're just gonna end up going on a whole nother fucking crusade, I guess. At this rate, dude.
That's why we have to block all the illegal immigration coming from this country. The elites are stealing from you. The deep state is stealing from you. Everybody's taking and like, America's the loser. We're the loser country for the rest of the world. We're gonna make us winner from everybody else. How is this not like NATO is taking advantage of us? NATO is stealing from us. How is that not? Maybe he'll agree it is. I don't know.
Mentally driven by envy and therefore externalize all the problems in their life toward a system that they blame as oppressive and then seek to tear down that system wholesale without even necessarily a plan for replacing it. The thing that really matters is that the system be torn down. And in the book, I talk about sort of what personality types are most common, and relying on the work of people like Eric Hoffer. I talk about sort of why it seems to arise from upper middle class people, particularly in the West. The sort of groups that I break it down into are what I call barbarians, meaning sort of using the traditional barbarians negate euphemism. The idea that
Destiny is one of the few liberals with f***ing balls, said one guy. The guy right above him said, I remember when Destiny was kind of interesting. His takes are so predictable now. Base. Thanks. This is what Venture was saying about President Obama during 2010. President Obama is, however, a man who embodies all the personal characteristics of a fascist leader, right down to the arrogant chin-up head tilt he utilizes when waiting for applause. He sees democracy as a filthy process that can be cured only by the centralized power of bureaucrats. He sees his presidency as a Hegelian synthesis, marking the end of political conflict.
That's a big one, Mr. President.
He sees himself as the embodiment of the collective will. No president should speak in these terms, not in a representative republic. Obama does it habitually. Oh my God.
There are people from outside civilization who believe that the United States or Western civilization or Europe is predominantly responsible for all the things wrong with their civilization, and that therefore the only way to regain your innate manhood, your innate nature, is to destroy and tear everything down. And here, obviously, you mentioned Fanon. I said Fanon pretty richly here, but I also said Sartre, so I think it's significantly worse than Fanon. At least Fanon is justified in his opposition to colonialism in Algeria. Sartre is a true nihilist and says that essentially the West should import its own destruction as a sort of way of doing recompense for all of its sins. And then you have what I call looters, people who believe that the systems of free markets, capitalism, private property, that these things are innately impoverishing and thus need to be abolished. And whatever it takes to abolish it, you should do. I mean, one of the characteristics of scavengers is the willingness to wink, nod, or participate in violence. The idea is that the systems are so oppressive that violence itself is justified. This is truly a scary thing that's happening in American politics, is the widespread justification for actual acts of violence that have been happening. In the book, I use the case of Louis Givenchy as a sort of example, par excellence of this. And then you have what I call electors, people who believe that, not that people ought to be able to order their lives in a wide variety of ways in terms of their sexual behavior, but believe that traditional institutions like family and church are somehow a threat to them doing this, that they're sort of indoctrinative.
Ezra usually keeps things chill on his show, though, right? Like, not debate-oriented. I'll give him a pass here. Yeah, but that's the issue, is that people like this guy is a scavenger, is a leech, is a parasite on U.S. democracy. The issue is you bring people on like this who lie to your face, who lie to the audience, who say insane, unhinged shit constantly, and then they come on here and they give you the dumbest, the most bad faith analysis, the worst reading of history. They lie about things that they themselves have said, and then we're just supposed to, like, accept it as normal and equal? It's just supposed to be the same thing?
Elements to traditional family and church, and that those need to be abolished or fought, or their influence minimized in order to recenter the marginalized. And so the center basically has to be exploded. And so
you need to add Pasovic saying "shut up, desk" to the soundboard. Oh, that's what I randomly left at earlier. Wait, do you have a clip of that?
So that explains the sort of bizarre example we've seen of Queers for Palestine. And so why Queers for Palestine? The answer is not because lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, identifying people are going to be treated particularly well in a future Hamas-ridden Gaza Strip. I think the idea is that the same civilization that's marginalizing you is marginalizing these people, and therefore we have to get together in a coalitional fashion in order to take down that civilization.
I mean, you've been talking about the omnicause on the left, but there are parts of your scavenger chapters where the people you're naming are on the right. Tucker Carlson, Andrew Tate, and there are streams of the right that are grievance-oriented. Streams of the right that I think offer a vision, at least of masculinity specifically, that differs quite a bit.
That is destructive and tear things down, yes. I mean, I think that the idea, again, is that this crosses party lines. I would say that the ideology of sort of resentment-driven politics, particularly economics here, tends to be more left-leaning than right-leaning. But when you're talking about the right, I do not mean this to be a pure right-left division. And when I criticize the sort of great conspiracy theory, as Karl Popper talked about, yes, there are people on the right who obviously are doing it. I mean, Tucker is name-checked in the book for this reason.
The question that all this bears on, the purpose of this interview, the purpose of all questions that I've ever raised with Epstein, go back to one central question, which is who runs the world? Who's making the decisions and on whose behalf?
I think that Tucker engages in extraordinary amounts of conspiracy theorizing these days because he has a belief that the United States has been fundamentally corrupted in some way, and that the only way to explain that fundamental corruption is because there are shadowy forces outside of his control who are not only manipulating you, but they are engaging in a sort of tacit brainwashing, right? A sort of mental manipulation. I mean, the book is largely written against reasons politics. This idea that you see a system, you don't like the system, it must be that the system is to fall. I think that is a rather cowardly way of addressing issues.
So, name some scavengers with power.
Wait.
I mean, the book is largely written against reasons politics. This idea that you see a system, you don't like the system, it must be that the system is to fall. I think that is a rather cowardly way of addressing issues.
So, name some scavengers with power for me.
This is also, remember how a couple years ago I started saying, like, you need examples with everything? Because people can, like, give you so much theory and concept, and you're like, yeah, we agree on everything. Yeah, oh my God, yeah, that sounds true. I get it. Give me examples of what you're talking about. And then as soon as you start giving examples, you're like, oh, wait a second. Wait, I was following you, but now every example that you're giving feels like the exact opposite thing that I was thinking of. All right. What are some examples of these scavengers?
Pressing issues.
So, name some scavengers with power for me.
Well, I mean, I think that by political, I would say that Joe Biden's willingness to open the border is an element of scavengerism. The
willingness to open the border. The asylum laws were on the books. You would have to change the process, unless you just want to rule via executive order, I guess, which is all Donald Trump is doing, is declaring emergencies everywhere and using executive order. Open the border.
Yeah, that America somehow bears some sort of bizarre blood guilt that requires us to keep our southern border open.
Like, do you think that Biden believes that? Oh, fuck. Oh, is Candace right? Is this guy like a Mossad prop? Is this the Jews trying to fuck our brains over? Do you think that Biden was thinking, yes, we need to open the border to infinite asylum seekers so that America can be punished for its crimes of, like, what the f are you talking about? Oh, this is it? This is all that's left now for American political analysis? Is this what, like, Germany and Italy and Japan and all the crazy countries, this is what it looked like before the end? This is just what all the conversations are about? There are no more. Why weren't the asylum laws abused as much before Biden? I think it was a combination of factors, but I think the big one was when, I think it was Alex something, fuck, it was a Cato dude who wrote an article on this. But I think that the thing was, generally, you can't abuse the asylum process, because if you come up and you claim asylum, they'll give you a slip, and then you'll go to a court, and if it's a claim, then they just dig you out, you're done. But the issue was, after COVID, there were a lot of people that didn't travel, not just because the border was more locked down, but also because a lot of people were sick, they didn't travel. After COVID, there was a huge wave of people that tried to come back to the United States, and then when that asylum process got clogged up, what happened was, well, the laws in the book say that if somebody comes here, they try to seek asylum, and we don't have the space to hear their claim, well, if they're seeking asylum, we can't just send them back from where they're seeking asylum from, so you issue them a slip, basically, and you say, okay, well, come to court. And at some point, basically, people realize, like, oh, the system is hella backed up. If we just run to the U.S., claim asylum, we can basically stay here indefinitely. And that catch and release stuff, that was like, these were laws on the books. You can argue, if you want to say a failure of the Democratic Party was not getting to that problem soon enough, but by the time they did get to it, and there was legislation on the table to address it, the Republicans ended up shooting it down because of Donald Trump telling them not to, even though it was a Republican-authored bill. And then we haven't done anything really about it since. But like Trump's in office, and he's managed to curb a lot of the people coming in, I guess, by just enforcing the border with executive order. But we have no immigration legislation. We haven't reformed significantly any part of the system. It's just going to sit here because I don't even think it was as big of a problem as they ever said it was. The number of illegals that came in grows it's so funny, actually, I guess, because I used to say this when I would argue with people, right? Okay, let's say 1 million illegals came in. Do you know if that's true? What about 10 million? What about 100 million? You really have no idea, right? Well, initially, it was 15 million illegals, or 10 million under Biden, 15 million, 20 million. The last I heard Trump talk about it was yesterday or the day before. He said 25 million? How many, 25, 30, 50, 100 million? Was it actually? I don't know, right? The number doesn't matter, because this is like an illusory problem. Just like every migrant caravan was going to destroy the United States, just like illegal immigrants are destroying the United States. Like apparently...
Scavengerism, the idea that America somehow bears some sort of bizarre blood guilt that requires us to keep our southern border open, to just allow in millions and millions of people. I think that's driven by...
You think it, for Joe Biden, was driven by blood guilt?
Thank you for at least bringing this up. Please don't let him just answer this and walk away. That's an insanely unhinged statement.
Base, by the way. Executive orders, the immigration, again, this is the stuff I was just talking about. Nothing has changed. Same conservative shit. There's still fear-mongering about immigrants. They did it 100 years ago with Italians and Irish and anybody. Nowadays, it's harder to do that with like-minded looking like white people, but they still kind of do it with, immigrants in general. They don't care. They don't. It's never a real problem. It's never been real issues. They just fearmonger, and that's it. That's actually how they got prohibition passed originally, was that they went to Christians or Catholics, told them that alcohol made the immigrants want to kill and eat their babies, and then they told the same thing basically to the immigrants when they came to America, and that's how they got prohibition passed, is by fear-mongering about it to each other. And they literally got two different groups on opposing sides to actually vote for the same thing. That's how effective their propaganda or fear-mongering is on the conservative side. It's always been God tier. That's the difficult part about, being a liberal or being a Democrat, is that the right is just... seems more people want to be right-leaning in the world. That just is what it is.
Statement to make, but it's all normal now under Trump, I guess. Oh God, please don't let him say, well, not Biden, because he wasn't really running it. I'm talking about the deep state. He wouldn't say that, right?
I think that for a lot of the left, that was, I don't know who was president during the Biden presidency.
Fucking loser. What a fucking loser. God, this guy's such a predictable cuck loser, dude. I hate him so much. I hate all these Donald Trump, I don't even know if he's alive right now. This motherfucker could die and they'd hide it for a week, okay? They've already lied about his medical record. They lied about every medical statement they put out about him. Apparently he was super healthy, not even overweight, and the only issue was the scar on his whatever ear from the...
Nah, they'd hide it for a year. They'd just make deep fake fucking videos of him sitting at the desk signing executive orders, and it's the same video you've reused 30 times, but they keep saying it's a different video. They'll just change the color of the tie or some shit, and that's it.
Gunshot that whizzed by him, supposedly, apparently. Meanwhile, we look at this motherfucker's ankles. They're larger than Rosie O'Donnell's. And then this guy, oh, actually, well, he has chronic venous insufficiency or whatever, by the way. Chronic condition, long term. Oh, okay. This guy's getting IVs to the hand because the veins in his arm are apparently so fucked up. Oh, but not actually. It's actually just him shaking a lot of hands for people. That's why the bruises are there. They've lied. Oh, now he's on, he's on Advil. He's on all these other blood thinners and everything.
Yeah, sure. Hand shaking, huh? He'd be shaking. He's shaking something, but it ain't hands.
Why, does he have congestive heart failure? Is he stroking out? Half this dude's face is dropping like this guy's having strokes on weekly. I don't think Biden was running the office, though. Donald Trump hasn't been able to explain a single a single executive order that he signed. It's explained to him by the staff that walks up and hand delivers it to him, and then they explain it to him as he sits there and he nods off in outer space. Sorry, it's just tiresome. It's boring and tiresome, right? Like, even with a conservative framing, even under a conservative framing, there is an interesting conversation that could have here. That the left's inability to directly confront the more toxic aspects of their voter coalition has rendered them incapable of sufficiently addressing problems at the border. And Biden was probably too afraid of angering some part of his base to tackle the immigration problem that he kicked it down the road too long and conservatives capitalized on, right? You could even frame that in a conservative, beneficial way, but he can't do that. He has to live in fantasy land with Donald Trump and the rest of the loonies he's cast his lot in with.
Blood guilt?
I think that for a lot of the left, that was, I don't know who was president during the Biden presidency. A lot of the left.
Name your person.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't mean it like that.
Thank you. Oh, no, he's not going to say, oh God, I thought Ezra was going to be based. I thought Ezra was going to be based for a second. I thought he was going to say, hey, instead of just saying some random person was running the office, who do you think was in charge then? Name it. Name the person. Who was in charge? Who? Kamala? Was she in charge? Was it the AG? Was it who? Name the person.
I mean, I know the Biden administration pretty well. And
what do you think?
I'll
ask you, what do you think was the ideological drive for leaving the border open?
Look at how Ben retreats, right? Like retreats like a coward. We went from it was Biden to it was I don't know who's running. Who? Well, it was the left. Who? Oh, well, the ideology. Look at how weak the claim is that we've retreated all the way back to is now.
No.
I think that they believe that.
Oh, and good. Whew, he shook him. He got him off it. Thank God.
We have an asylum process, that people were fleeing genuine poverty, persecution. I think that they were in coalition and were appalled by the first Trump administration on immigration. And I think that they did not act fast enough when it became a crisis. But I don't think, having talked to many of them about it, that they
so Ezra has, that's more or less whatever. Yeah.
So this is a kind of reparations.
So I do think that there is a part of the left that articulates this as a kind of reparations. I think it's fair to say that wasn't Joe Biden specifically. But I think there's a part of the left that sees it as kind of reparation. In terms of economics, Bernie Sanders definitely falls in this category.
Bernie Sanders? Was he the one running the party? Also, by the way, Bernie Sanders doesn't fall into that line because Bernie Sanders is a populist. Bernie Sanders doesn't even like immigration. Bernie Sanders, that was one of my criticisms of Bernie Sanders, unless his position has changed in this recently. Bernie Sanders was actually relatively anti-low skill and H-1B immigration because he thought that it was competing with domestic workers too much. That was one of Bernie Sanders' positions. He was relatively protectionist when it came to immigration policy for the United States.
He believes that America is guilty globally. He believes that the great suffering of the earth can be laid at the feet of American-style capitalism. That America is somehow a terrible and horrifying sight of untold human suffering because of capitalism. He has never created a damn thing in his entire life.
Like, these are fanfic.
It's not just capitalism. You see how they try to guise away from it? Like, this is the same thing the southern slave owners said, literally in 250 years ago, which was, well, we can't get rid of the slaves. They build up our economy. We use them for money. Like, in the end of the day, it's under the guise of capitalism. But at the end of the day, they just don't give a fuck. And it's not even as that they're racist. Some of them just did it because they could get away with it and make money off of it. They might not even have had a thing against black people. They just did it for the fucking money. Welcome to our world. It's every man for himself. This is like the number one thing I've learned in my life is that humanity will always pretend to be selfless. But in the end of the day, we are not selfless beings. We are inherently selfish. Like, being selfless as a human is the exception to the rule. And I truly believe that.
Fictions. These are fan fictions created by the right that they get off to. Like, they create their own fan fictions of the Democrats and then they fight with them constantly.
Like, that's worthwhile.
A pretty big political movement.
I said that is worthwhile.
I guess this is a place. You know, when we're in the Lions part of the book, a lot feels to me like a pretty straightforward case for...
Oh, and then we just walk away. Nice. From all of that. Okay.
Like a traditional and positive masculinity. Be bold, be risk-taking, take care of your family, innovate, see purpose in life. You know, there's a lot there that, you know, if I imagine it's like a male self-help book, well, it would fit, right?
It is worthwhile.
I guess this is a place. You know, when we're in the Lions part of the book, a lot feels to me like a pretty straightforward case for...
Oh, and then we just walk away. Nice. From all of that. Okay.
Like a traditional and positive masculinity.
Is right.
Be bold, be risk-taking, take care of your family, innovate, see purpose in life. You know, there's a lot there that, you know, if I imagine it's like a male self-help book, well, it would fit, right? And I want my kids to read it, right? I would not argue with it. When you get to the scavengers...
Wow, the most basic shit, the bare fucking minimum? Really? Okay, who would have known? The bare fucking minimum. Jesus fucking Christ. Pat yourself on the back some more, conservatives. Fucking A. Acting like every single one of you don't do the same exact fucking thing. You act like it's like you're all Elon Musk for some reason.
The way you write about them, the scavenger's a looter, greedy, jealous, and violent. You say the scavenger's a lecher, rebellious, perverse, and leering. The scavenger's a barbarian, jealous, enraged, and violent. Scavengers do not wish for a better world, or at least a better world for everyone. They'd rather be equal in misery than unequal in prosperity.
Never mind. I reverse. I just said earlier that I didn't believe in. I think Ben Shapiro's. I reverse. I'm just joking. I actually think Ben Shapiro's based. He's got to be trolling. Ben is trolling. It's a troll, and I think it's funny again. I think it's a little disgusting that he's kind of like destroying the country while he's trolling. But
that is true.
It has to be a troll. This is absolutely a troll.
Scavenger's a looter, greedy, jealous, and violent. You say.
I don't think it's a troll. I mean, obviously it's not real, but I don't think it's necessarily a troll. Like a troll. I think it's more. They just don't care. They get their bag one way or the other. Why the fuck this has moved? Don't know. But in the end, it's all it is. In the end, I don't think any of them think it really matters. And that's why they only focus on getting their bag. Because I think everybody's collectively kind of understands nobody really cares. Unless it's your, like, own immediate vicinity. Like, nobody really cares outside of that. Even with the internet. You know? Like I said, doing that is, like, not based in human nature. Being selfless is, at least. Being selfish, however, that's just fucking survival. Ingrained into us, basically.
Say the scavenger's a lecher, rebellious, perverse, and leering. The scavenger's a barbarian, jealous, enraged, and violent. Scavengers do not wish for a better world, or at least a better world for everyone. They'd rather be equal in misery than unequal in prosperity. I guess let's talk about Bernie for a second. You call him a putrescent Marxist pimple on the posterior of the body politic. This is a person who, from my perspective...
You didn't try the alliteration there? Come on.
This is a person who, as I see him, has really devoted his life to trying to make the situation of people in the working class or in poverty better, right? He believes that the billionaires and the millionaires have too much. And...
Well, not only billionaires, right? Once you become a millionaire, that disappeared. Well, sure.
And the people should have healthcare. That should be a right. The kids shouldn't be in...
I love how he knows all the talking points. Oh, well, actually, Bernie Sanders is a millionaire now. This guy's like 80 years old, and he's got over $1 million. It's not like the same type of millionaire that anybody's obviously talking about. But...
Poverty, that we can redistribute more. I can understand why you disagree with him. You're a more free market guy than Bernie is. But the cut you're making here is very, very deep, right? Just people who are extractive and want to destroy, want us all to live in hell. And it's like... Yeah, this longtime Democratic senator and former mayor who's pretty good at running, I guess defend that for me.
Okay, so I mean, Bernie Sanders has met very few dictators who are socialist in bent that he has not offered a defense of. Bernie Sanders has never
like Donald Trump being envious of North Korea, being envious of how China runs, being envious of every dictator, authoritarian loser this guy ever meets, and then meanwhile turning around and criticizing and attacking every single Democratic leader he meets.
Produced anything outside of a grievance-based political movement that he offered a defense of. I mean, Bernie Sanders has met very few dictators who are socialist in bent that he has not offered a defense of. Bernie Sanders has never produced anything outside of a grievance-based political movement that suggests...
Like, they love to do this, like, oh, he hasn't made anything. Yeah, he's a politician, bro. What do you mean? Like, people that go to work in politics are not necessarily the same people that are like business people. Like, Donald Trump's production of stuff has amounted to basically a reality TV show. All the rest of his brands such... Nobody's bragging about Trump-branded anything. If anything, it's a symbol of, like, American gaudiness. Like, nobody was bragging about eating Trump steaks. Or saying like, oh, well, if you want to have like the nicest, best looking, coolest place, Trump Tower is like one of the finest stuff. Like, it's just like gaudy, gold emblazoned everything. He's doing it now with the White House. It's the obsession with wealth and flashiness and ugh.
Say where I'm on what Bernie wants, right? Because what you're describing in terms of he's never produced anything outside politics. Well, okay, politicians produce politics. That's their job, right? Many politicians on the right have not started large businesses. So that doesn't cut.
Not to mention Donald Trump inherited everything from his daddy.
He has not produced job growth. He has not produced a more productive base of citizenry. He has not produced public policy that has resulted in anything of measure. He has not been a co-sponsor on a major bill his entire career. He has sat outside the political system and bitched about it for literally...
I watched him at...
Like, Ezra should throw this right back in his face. These are good criticisms of Bernie Sanders. But I thought earlier you said that Bernie Sanders was like the guy to represent the Democratic movement. But now you're saying he hasn't co-authored any major bills. He hasn't represented any large thread of thought in the Democratic movement. I thought earlier Bernie Sanders was like the go-to here for a good representation of the left. No?
had huge amounts of things to various bills. I mean, I covered the Affordable Care Act very closely.
Are we now going to present that Bernie Sanders is a wildly
Where the
powerful
fuck is all
legislator?
that?
He was always for someone on the left.
We're all
He was always somebody.
His entire
He was
career.
always somebody who was very good at working to get his amendments into bills. I don't want to try to convince you to like Bernie Sanders. What I'm trying to do is match up like the guy who got a bunch of funding for community health centers. Hold on, to this division you are creating in the people who just want to suck.
Oh, Ezra brought Bernie up. You're right. I'm sorry. My bad. Ben Shapiro brought up Mamdani, who is even more of a outer perimeter figure in the Democratic Party. My bad.
Like, you don't see anything of value in the way he understands, people I think you would see sympathetically as suffering, as deserving a higher minimum wage, as deserving healthcare when they can't afford it. To you, he is just an enemy of Western civilization.
Wait, did he really?
And the reason I say that is because, again, I think that the easy part of all politics and all of human life is to find the places where you think that life has been unfair to people, because life is sometimes unfair to people. The question is how you direct that. Has he directed that toward actually building better systems? Or has he spent his entire career yelling at people who have become wealthy? Has he maligned them as morally inferior for having developed wealth? Has he decided that there is a class of people who are the great exploiters in his moral narrative and who must be torn to the ground? Billionaires shouldn't exist. I have a question. When you cross that $999,999 mark, is that when you become evil? Like when exactly is that barrier?
I think you could not become evil. You could just have a high marginal tax rate.
Well, but that's not the case he makes. That's not the case he makes. He makes the case that you are a moral inferior if you're a billionaire.
Let me read you something J.D. Vance said to my colleague Ross Douthat in 2024. He said, the people on the left, I would say, whose politics I'm open to, I'm here as J.D. Vance, it's the Bernie bros. But generally center-left liberals are doing very well. Center-right conservatives are doing very well. I think that's actually you and me. Have incredible blind spot about how much their success. Center-right conservatives are doing very well. I think that's actually you and me.
Oh, he's saying he's the center-left liberal. He's the center-right conservative, right?
Have incredible blind spot about how much their success is built on a system that is not serving people who they should be serving. Is J.D. Vance, at least this part of J.D. Vance, a scavenger?
That ideology is a scavenger ideology. Yes. That is a grievance-based politics that is not rooted in discourse.
But generally center-left liberals are doing very well. Center-right conservatives are doing very well. I think that's actually you and me. Have incredible blind spot about how much their success is built on a system that is not serving people who they should be serving. Is J.D. Vance, at least this part of J.D. Vance, a scavenger?
That ideology is a scavenger ideology.
Like, this is the entire ideology of, arguably, this applies so cleanly onto the anti-globalist ideology, no? That there are some people that get wealthy off of globalist policies, but it's not serving the American public, or at least sections of the American public that have been left behind or forgotten by globalists. Like,
yes, that is a grievance-based politics that is not rooted in reality, and it is directly at odds with the Lion version of J.D. Vance, who wrote Hillbillyology.
How do we even get on this? Why are we even talking about socialism? Why do we keep bringing it back to Bernie? Why is it always Bernie? Why is it always communism? You think they would get like a new talking point eventually? Like, I'm honestly just... I mean, I guess because the socialist movements have a lot of fucking pull now, but... Fucking A, dude.
That.
So J.D. Vance is a scavenger to you.
Well, I think
that's valuable for me to understand. Like,
well,
how you're
I think that I think that his economic philosophy, as articulated there, and again, he's given a lot of different messages to a lot of different people about economics, right? Sometimes he's a Peter Thiel innovator, and sometimes and a crypto bro innovator, and sometimes J.D. Vance is we need to ensure that Elizabeth Warren's economic plans are implemented, but from the right. And so, again, I'm not going to be inconsistent about this. If I'm condemning Bernie Sanders' economics, if it comes out of the mouth of J.D. Vance, then it's the same economics.
So can an economic system be unfair structurally?
Well, I mean, it depends, of course, but I don't know why that would be the case with a private property system in which people own the fruits of their labors.
There's all kinds of ways a private system could be unfair.
Well, I mean, sure.
And also, markets are shaped. I mean, come on, we're not.
What is this? Why, he sounds like a.
Well, economics.
So, can an economic system be unfair structurally?
Well, I mean, it depends, of course, but I don't know why that would be the case with a private property system in which people own the fruits of their labors.
Like, this is like a 4-year-old. I don't even know if I was this retarded reading Ayn Rand in high school. Like,
yeah.
Everybody's not born, like, we could do this from a race realist perspective, right? That not everybody's even born with the same capabilities biologically. So is it necessarily fair that some people right off the bat, might be more qualified for some work that just happens to be more economically productive than other people? We could do this from an inheritance perspective. Is it fair that some people may be born with a lot of money and other people aren't born with any money, don't have the same opportunities? We could do it from a geographic perspective, that some people might be born in areas where they have more opportunities versus others that are born in more areas where they don't have the same. Like, we can do this from, there are so many different obvious assertions that you can make that even in the most free market capitalist system ever, there are certain people that have obvious advantages and disadvantages through no fault or contribution of their own.
There's all kinds of ways a private system could be unfair.
Well, I mean, sure.
And also, markets are shaped. I mean, come on, we're not in crude econ 101 here. We create patent systems that create government enforcement monopolies. I mean,
I don't even like him saying Econ 101. Even in Econ 101, you would learn how stupid that statement is.
Structured economy.
Of course, but there's a difference between more and less fair, and it seems to be the least fair system is a centralized governmental system in which you pick winners and losers,
and
where nationalize the labor of others in order to achieve your specific goals.
That was stupid.
Sure, you can be more or less unfair. But so your view is sort of basically any.
So what do you think about the tariff regime that Trump has now implemented across literally every single country on the planet?
Any politician, left or right, who says to people, listen, you're suffering. you don't make enough. You're working 2 or 3 jobs to get by or not finding jobs. And the reason is that you got screwed. We shipped your job to China. You know, the trade deals were unfair, or the billionaires took too much, and now you've got just-in-time scheduling in a, you know, a community that doesn't have a paper mill anymore. That whenever you sort of activate that sense, that it's not your fault, it's their fault. That's scavenger mentality to you.
I think, generally speaking, that is true unless you can provide very, very good evidence that there is a cause and effect relationship between the thing that you are blaming and the thing that is happening to the person. And I think most of the time it's misdirection. So I think that when people suggest, for example, that manufacturing is going to come back to the Midwest, if you just tariff China hard enough, and that's not going to victimize consumers on the other end who are going to be paying more, then yes, that is a grievance-based politics. That is an envy-based politics. And listen, envy can go really far in politics. Envy is a great way of doing politics. It really is. The hardest thing in politics is to say the thing that no one will say, which is, my job is to basically get the obstacles out of your way so that you can succeed or fail on your own merits. And if you fail, you know, that ain't always everybody else's problem.
How do you understand the pitch Donald Trump, over the course of his career, as political career, I should say, made to his voters, right? Because I would say a real way that he differed from Mitt Romney was that he came and said, you got screwed.
Yes.
And so
I think he's wrong, but yes.
And so Trump is it's sort of, he pulled the right into a scavenger mentality?
I think with regard to sort of a populist economics, yes, sure.
You seem pretty positive on him a lot.
Sure,
that way.
sure, I guess.
I mean,
like you voted for him in 2020 and 2024.
Yes,
you campaigned for him in 2024.
Right, so I can comment on that. I didn't vote for either candidate in 2016. I voted for him in 2020.
Yes.
I campaigned for him in 2024. Yeah,
but
that doesn't mean I agree with him on everything.
It's so. I am not. I actually want to be super clear. I understand your evolution is interesting, right? I don't want to do a interview with you. I'm actually tracking it because I think it is important to understand you to understand the right. The reason I'm actually surprised to hear you say some of this isn't that I couldn't map it onto the theory of the book, but that the way you write about scavengers in the book, it's so vicious, it's so subhuman.
Damn.
That to realize that actually politicians you somewhat like fit in that for you is genuinely surprising.
So again, I think that to suggest that adopting certain aspects of a scavenger mentality, that doesn't necessarily turn you totally into, this is why I started with the point that every day you wake up and decide whether you wish to be a scavenger or a lion. So there are people who have aspects of scavengerdom, there are people who have aspects of liondom. I mean, I think that President Trump's economic agenda has aspects that are more lion-like. I think it has aspects that are more scavenger-like.
Like, can you make it to notice the nuance, right? The selective nuance, right? Bernie Sanders was just bad, full stop. But like the nuance when it comes to analyzing Trump, this is the same always. This is so boring. Does this get better? This is just like Ben Shapiro slop. I'm basically listening to his talk show.
But when I read this book, I read something that, yeah, it maps very, very uneasily onto Trump. You do have a whole section about Trump as a lion and him taking the, I forget if it's the oath of office or which speech exactly it was, but when he won, it's like the lions are reawakening.
Well, but what I do say in that section is I don't know whether that moment is going to be justified by subsequent action. Right? I do say that. I wrote that like the day of the inauguration, and it felt like there was kind of a sense in America that we'd moved beyond some of the grievance politics that were so characterized inside the DEI basis of the Biden administration or the wealth is bad side of the Democratic Party. But I do say in that section, I don't know whether that's going to be justified by further policy. I feel like there's an upsurge in the American feeling in favor of things like personal responsibility and non-grievance-based politics, but whether politicians are going to channel that in a positive direction or whether they're going to re-channel away from that is a whole different question.
Let me, I want to do one more beat on the scavengers here, then we'll move on to sort of Trump and the president. Let me read a piece of the book for you. Aside from their base envy, how can we describe the scavengers? As we've discussed, lions are creative, determined, and audacious. They are steadfast, prudent, merciful, and strong. Scavengers are something else entirely. In his book, The True Believer, Eric Hoffer explains that those who tear down the societies in which they live are typically what he terms inferiors. The failures, misfits, outcasts, criminals, and all those who have lost their footing or never had one in the ranks of respectable humanity. They see their lives and the present is spoiled beyond remedy, and they're ready to waste and wreck both. Hence their recklessness and their will to chaos and anarchy.
It's a troll. It's epic. My opinion for Ben is climbing. It's going higher and higher now. He must be trolling.
It's pretty sweeping, right?
I mean,
well, if you wanted to ask me who's sort of the apotheosis,
yes, who's the apotheosis?
Maybe, yes.
The campus protesters over the course of the last couple of years.
Although they're not
college kids. That's your go-to. This is why these are not. We need to make another word for politics so people can go do real politics. And then if people just want to talk about college kids and want to talk about TikTok trends, they can go do that. And so Ben Shapiro can go talk about like what do college kids protest or what do they. And then we can actually have real policy-based conversations. That's who you had in mind. The scavengers in society are college kids. You know, definitionally, they are scavengers. They're children. They haven't even gotten to contribute yet. You're not like a net contributor until you're probably at least 30, if not into your 30s. Your parents are paying for you. Your parents get tax breaks and everything to care for you. You're going to school. You're not working. You're a huge money and time sink. You're a fiscal sink for the state. You're a financial sink and a time sink for your parents and for teachers in school. Yeah, no, your go-to scavengers in society are school kids? This is such an unserious conversation.
Well, if you wanted to ask me who's sort of like the apotheosis.
Yes, who's the apotheosis?
The campus protesters over the course of the last couple of years.
But they're not inferior. I thought about this. I have a note on the section. No, they are, because they are the kids at Ivy League colleges. They're doing just fine. They're not social inferiors by any measure.
No, I do talk in that exact section about the scavengers, about why scavengers tend to be drawn from the ranks of sort of the upper middle class and the overtly educated who then produce less than they should. You know, the sort of prototypical scavenger, again, one point I make in the book, I'll say it over and over again, is that people are a mix of these things. And that you can sometimes be a scavenger, sometimes be a lion. Their ideologies are a mix of both. When I'm talking about the pure, thoroughgoing scavengers, here you would be talking about Hamas, people who stand for Hamas, people who are out there protesting on behalf of the idea that the real problem in America is police to the extent that they actually want to defund the police. Those are the people who want to tear down entire institutions. Now, politics is...
Bro, who is still protesting for defund the police? Nobody. I mean, maybe there might be a few people. I actually don't know. Are there still people actually trying to do that? I thought we already tried that in the one state and it failed miserably. That's what I thought. Bro, he's got a whip. My only weakness. Epic boss fight going on, by the way. I didn't realize this was a boss fight. But yeah, like, who is still out here trying to, like, protest for... That's not a good idea, my dudes. Can we stop? We need police on some level. Like, we can't just defund all of it or get rid of it. I know, like, some people definitely, I'm sure, would like that, but we can't do that. I'm sorry. We kind of need them. I would very much not like my life to be 10 times harder than it had to be. Or has to be, even. The fuck is this? But yeah, I would like to see proof that people are still protesting that shit, dude. There's no way. I severely doubt. I think they might be protesting the ICE stuff, maybe, but not fucking defund the police. Anything but defund the police, please. Anything else.
The game where you can channel that, you can use it as jet fuel for your political movement. And the problem is that when you do feed that sort of envious mentality, what you end up doing is throwing more jet fuel on a raging fire that already exists in the human heart, and eventually that's going to take over your entire politics. And that's what I'm concerned about. And the reason that I'm sort of objecting to mapping that onto sort of prototypical politics is because I don't use Democrat and Republican as the model of this. I'm not saying that a politician is a scavenger.
I want to say this clearly. You do not
wait.
Do that in the book.
He doesn't do that in the book, but hold on. What are all of his examples for scavengers been, though, right? Who did he name? Was Mamdani or Mamdani? Did he call him out as a scavenger? Or did he just say he was the Democratic person of the party that resembled them? I don't think he said that. He did say Bernie Sanders was a scavenger. He said Vance's old views were a scavenger, but they're not that anymore, implying that now that he's aligned with MAGA, they're not. He called out the campus protesters, who I believe were largely left-wing protesters, as scavengers. Are there any Republican scavengers? Is Ezra going to ask that?
At the same time, there's very little, I would say, effort to cross the empathic chasm sometimes to the people you are describing as scavengers, how they would see the world that way, how, in fact, in seeing the world that way, there would be a boldness, there would be an effort to change things for the better, to protect their family, to protect their community, right? How protesters, even the ones you don't like, often understand themselves as standing up for someone who actually needs someone to stand up for them. AOC and Bernie Sanders really thinking, like getting up in the mornings, or Mamdani, how I see them, getting up in the morning and really feeling like there are people out here working their asses off, not able to make ends meet, and like they need people in power to stand up for them. And some of the, like I actually thought the weirdest part of the book to me, the part that was the most striking when I got to it, was when you quote Nietzsche on Judaism. Right, and you say this is an incorrect interpretation of Judaism, but you quote Nietzsche writing, it was the Jews who, with awe-inspiring consistency, dared to invert the aristocratic value equation, good equals noble, equals powerful, equals beautiful, equals happy, equals beloved of God, and hang on to the inversion with their teeth, saying the wretched alone are the good, the poor, impotent, lonely alone are the good, the suffering, deprived, sick, ugly alone are pious, alone are blessed by God. And now you disagree with Nietzsche that that's the right interpretation of Judaism and then ultimately of Christianity.
And I also think that isn't a moral view of the world.
Right, this is what I want to get at. That
I do not think poverty somehow creates value in humans more than riches create value in humans. What you do in the world is what makes you a good or a bad person.
I agree with that, actually, right? I both understand that and agree with that.
And that's why I said she's wrong, by the way, because the Bible explicitly says you're not supposed to favor the rich or the poor, right?
There's quite a lot in the Bible also about understanding the difficulty of poverty, what you should give unto the poor, that is very easy for the rich and the powerful to tumble into immorality.
So, yeah, I think that, Ezra, you focus a lot on, obviously, listen to the show a lot and heard conversations that you've had with a number of figures in your sessions about Zoran Mamdani, for example. And empathy and grievance are not mutually exclusive. In fact, empathy and grievance can go very easily hand in hand. And I do not actually think that once you translate empathy into grievance, I think that you've actually fundamentally undermined what is good about the empathy.
So what is the moment when empathy becomes grievance?
Okay, so I feel so bad for you that I'm going to get in your shoes and I can see why you would believe that the systems are screwing you, therefore the systems are screwing you, therefore we should tear down the systems. The transition from I can see why you believe the systems are screwing you to the systems are screwing you, that exact transition is where empathy becomes grievance. And there's good social science to suggest that actually empathy makes for some ugly politics if in fact you spend all of your days on empathy because you end up empathizing with one group at the expense of another group. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. I would hope that everybody in politics...
God, fucking listening to any conservative just talk about empathy, it just makes me cringe. I don't wanna listen to it. I don't wanna hear from you. Anybody, and literally anybody but you.
Has empathy, but I think it's perfectly empathic to say, yes, you feel that something bad has happened to you, your life is not what you want it to be, and now you need to realize that the only person who can get you out of the situation is you, and you need to start making really good, solid decisions with your life. And in fact, that message is much more likely to lead to success than the message that I alone can say, which is something President Trump said, or any other politician who says, I'm going to come in and I'm going to clean up the entire system for you, and now the system will be oriented toward you personally, and magically, your job is going to come back, or magically, you're going to be more prosperous, or magically, somebody's going to take care of your healthcare in a way that they didn't before. Like that is a cheap political tactic that is rarely fulfilled in real life.
It's interesting. I understand you much more as a man without a party than I did coming into this. Because I think if you look across...
What? He's defends Trump on everything. Ben Shapiro's advice here would be good if he was a life coach. But if you're designing policy, you never approach politics under the guise of, you don't approach politics under the guise of nothing the system does can help you or change anything. But what's the point of any policy at all then? What do you mean? Of course you enact policy to like broadly guide society in a more productive direction that benefits the majority of your citizenry. That's the whole point of policy and politics, ideally, right? What is...
I mean, yeah, ideally until, you know, somebody comes along and decides not to follow it, you know. For whatever reason that may be.
Nobody, like what did the president say? You need to figure it out. What did the attorney general say? We're not going to prosecute that guy. You need to figure it out yourself. Damn, what did the FBI say? We're not going to arrest that guy. You're going to figure it out yourself. Okay, fuck it. I'm going to go, I guess, kill the guy then. Good job. You killed him. What did the cops say? Nothing. You're going to take care of it yourself. Like, what is everybody, like...
It's politics right now. There is not a political party. There is not a forceful political movement that at its core isn't saying, the system is screwing you. Trump is saying, the system is screwing you. The left is saying, the system is screwing you. The liberals are saying, the system is screwing you. Trump is saying, the system is screwing you. The left is saying, the system is screwing you. The liberals are saying, the system is screwing you.
Like, not even on remotely the same level, though, but...
The right is, I mean, we're not in the era of Mitt Romney anymore. And, like, you are really allergic to that view.
Yes. I mean, and again, one of the things that I believe is that the biblical worldview, right, this does go to sort of religious beliefs to me. The biblical worldview is rooted in a fundamental distinction that the Bible makes. And as an Orthodox Jew, obviously, this is something I try to live by. The kind of ethical basis of ethical monotheism is the idea that you have things to do in the world and that free choice...
My version of the Bible says...
is up to you, right? When I define sort of what a philosophy line would be, the basic idea that is revelatory about the Bible is this idea that it's not, your life is not a series of random coincidences and pagan gods fighting in the heavens and lightning randomly striking you. I quote Lear, where Gloucester talks about, you know, as flies to the gods are we, right? They pose for their sport. Like, that's not the mentality of the Bible. The mentality of the Bible is something that is radically different, which is basically you choose life, right? Like the choice is in front of you. Do the right thing and good things will happen. Now, again, that raises all sorts of theodicy questions. Is that really true? Do bad things happen to good people? Of course, these are not.
God, if you people only would have lived by those words. Huh. Just saying.
Problems in religion, but the basic concept, which is if you act responsibly in the world, you're significantly more likely to have a better life and to make the world around you better. That's the thing that I try to live by and to teach my kids. And when you teach my kids the opposite, when you teach them that no matter what they do, they're screwed by the system, and actually the systems that brought them unnamed prosperity, the greatest prosperity in the history of the world, the most freedom of any human beings who have ever walked this earth, that system is to blame, not them. I am allergic to that. I think it makes people worse. I think it makes society worse. I think it makes cultures worse.
I think college does radicalize people. It radicalizes conservatives that look at college. Holy shit.
Desire civilization of meaning, purpose, and prosperity.
True.
Interesting. I've noticed that there's a real collision of interpretation of the Bible that I feel has become more central in the past decade or two decades than at least I perceived it as being before. So on the one hand, I see the author of Dominion, Tom Holland, on a lot of writing podcasts. I read Dominion. I think it's a really fascinating and beautiful book, right? And putting forward the argument that a lot of what we revere in modernity, that this belief of like the dignity of the individual, that they have rights, they have a soul, that they're not just pawns on a chessboard, right? That they should not just be subject to the whims of power, that is an inheritance of Christianity specifically. And that there is no liberalism without Christianity, there is no. That all these things that the left has sort of rejected as retrograde, it's actually where they come from. And in rejecting it, they've lost something very, very fundamental to what made their entire worldview. This is something that you sort of gestured at, but why don't we do it as a way to set up this part of the conversation? You were very, very post-Trump 2016, wrote a piece about how you would never support him, over time shifted. You talked about this.
There's national rights. Here's what you could do to earn my support at the same time, but yes, I need many of them.
Here's what you can do to earn my support? Didn't he say he would never vote for him ever? I thought he said the same thing again in like 2021, no? What?
Those things to be fair. But
yeah,
yes.
so talk me through it.
Also, a base thing that, Ezra said just there, there would be no liberalism without Christians. It's kind of true. Partly. Though most Christians aren't very good at being Christian. So, it is what it is.
Talk me through your evolution on Trump.
Sure. So when he came along, I made several critiques of Trump. Some were character-based, some were sort of personality-based. Some were critiques of people who's letting into the movement. I thought that the expansion of the Overton window for the right, well, you know, I think somewhat necessary. I think that it was overexpanded, and I think that there, as I said, beginning some clowns in the head. But you know, when it comes to his actual policy, I assumed that he would be as heterodox in his politics as he had been in his campaign, which is to say he was on every side of every issue and kind of saw in him what you wanted to see. Was he going to be conservative on social policy, or was he going to carry around a gay pride flag? Was he going to be a person who was staunchly pro-life, or was he going to be a sort of New York pro-choicer? Was he going to be somebody who was in favor of strong Second Amendment rights, or was he going to be, you know, maybe do some gun control? Was he an industrial policy guy, or was he free market guy? Like, he could legitimately take any or all of those sundry positions. Were the judges that he appointed going to be along the lines of Clarence Thomas and Antonin Scalia, or was it going to be his relatives? And so my assumption was that he was going to essentially govern almost from the center left, and that many of his policies were not going to align with the things that I wanted. So I wouldn't get what I wanted policy-wise. I thought that he was going to...
By the way, policy-wise, that is basically where Trump is. That's why it doesn't really make sense to analyze Trump as like a far-right conservative, because he's policy-wise, he's really not. And he broke with the old hawkish neocons in significant ways, right? In that he doesn't want to do anything in regards to foreign policy, you know, nothing in regards to helping or invading other countries, although he goes back and forth on this constantly, I guess, or he wants to invade maybe countries in the New World, in South America, but not as much over in Europe and the Middle East, except when he's bombing that. It's hard to say at any point in time. He switched from being like an open markets, free trade kind of guy, which I believe also is kind of where the Republican Party was more at, into a the most hardcore protectionist policy, the most isolationist policy you could ever have. His social views are all over the place.
You know, have a dire effect on the kind of political nature of the country. And I had objections to Shapiro. Well, I mean, the extent of the rhetoric that he used in 2015, 2016, I think was quite unpleasant and wrong and bad, and I still have objections to. And so, as I said when I endorsed him in 2020, my character critiques of President Trump didn't change. And many of the things that I thought that were bad, that he might bring about, more polarization in politics, for example, that did happen, but I got much better governance than I thought I would, and meanwhile left insane. And so that was sort of why I moved in 2020, was the bad things are pretty much baked in the cake. We know what we got. He gave me more than I thought he would when he gave me several justices on the Supreme Court, who I actually quite liked. When he decided he was going to push sort of traditional Republican economic policy with regards to deregulation and tax cuts, he pushed a foreign policy that I thought actually was quite excellent. That was the best part of his administration in Trump 1. And so I got more than I thought I was going to get, so I changed my opinion because of the tax advantage. And then in 2024, again, it came down to a binary choice. In primaries, I supported Ron DeSantis. When it came down to a binary choice, when it was basically over after Iowa, and now it's a choice between Trump and Biden/Kamala Harris, then that was a clear enough choice where I was like, I'm going to go campaign for the guy because I do not want to see a second Biden presidency or a Kamala Harris presidency.
Can you ask him, please, what was so horrible about Biden's presidency? What was so horrible?
What was the
Maybe besides
worst?
immigration. What was so terrible?
Yeah.
Is he going to ask that? Please, God.
But I think that many of my underlying objections didn't particularly change.
Where are you now? We're 7 months in. What have you liked? What have you not liked?
So I think that his attempts to move more toward meritocracy and away from DEI in sort of federal policy procedure is good.
Yeah, the guy who's hiring Fox News hosts all over his fucking cabinet and installing them as prosecutors across the country. Really? That's the merit-based guy? Okay, what else?
I think that what he has been doing on foreign policy is shockingly better than I thought that it was.
There's that conservative mindset for you.
Going to be.
You mean where he's pulled zero concessions from...
Pull yourself up by your rich friend's pockets.
From either Hamas or the Israeli government, where they're continuing to fight with each other, despite the fact that he said he'd solve that on day zero. You mean, and Witkoff even bragged with Trump that they'd already gotten a ceasefire scheduled before Trump even came into office, which I think is illegal, by the way. Or the fact that he said that Ukraine-Russia would be solved on day one, day zero, and it hasn't been, and Putin continues to make a joke out of it on the world stage. Like, what are these huge Donald Trump foreign policy wins, where every single country hates us now because of these arbitrary tariffs that go on and come off constantly, where we're ruining our relationships with even countries like India and shit? Modi hates Trump because he's lying about ending wars, because he's putting all these random secondary tariffs on other countries. Like, what is the foreign policy W that we're looking at here?
I think that what he has been doing on foreign policy is shockingly better than I thought that it was going to be. I was one of the few people on the right who consistently took the position that we ought to continue supporting Ukraine, for example, and he came around to that position.
Where's the lav clip? Sometimes I just lie, and it just comes out, and I just lie.
And that maintaining support for Ukraine is a good thing. Obviously, I'm very pro-Israel. I like his Israel policy quite a lot. I think that when it comes to
That's a
Israel
very
policy,
white girl thing to say. I'm sorry.
I've been openly and vocally anti. When it comes to things like industrial policy, in which we're taking stakes in Intel, not a fan. When it comes to his social policy, I think a lot to say on social policy, frankly, because after Roe versus Wade was rejected, basically kind of got kicked down to the local level, so you're not seeing a lot there.
Oh, we have nothing to say about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. We have nothing to say about executive orders being written targeting law firms and rescinding security clearances from people that we don't like. We have nothing to say. Well, Pambani's reasons.
Nothing to say at all.
About the invoking the Alien Enemies Act to accelerate deportations of people, the invocation of national emergencies everywhere in order to give him unlimited power to rule from the executive branch. Nothing to say about any of that.
But I would say that overall, but it's a mixed bag. And one of the arguments that the right is constantly having itself is: do you grade him versus what you would have gotten with Kamala Harris, or do you grade him versus what you want from him as the president? And I always tend to do.
Please ask what policies. What were the horrible things? Please.
The problem is, it again goes back to us being selfish. We're not selfless. Like, we don't think about other people halfway across the world as a normal thing. That's not a normal thing to do for a human being. You're usually focused on yourself and your immediate surroundings and the people you have connections to. Usually the strongest connections, and it just so happens, what's the stronger connection than family? And that's why they're very much focused around that. That's just how it has always been. And that's why they want to stay, like, traditional in a sense.
Ladder. I tend to say, here's what I want, here's where I wish you would do better, as opposed to, because all day long you can say, okay, well, do more with Kamala. I agree, that's why I voted for him, so I campaigned for him.
It's interesting, there's an almost parallel argument on the left, which is, do you talk about Trump as a normal Republican, right? These guys who cut Medicaid to fund tax cuts, or do you talk about Trump as something abnormal, something authoritarian, somebody sort of taking new powers? This is something that at other times you've been very, very alert on. You read about Barack Obama, that he's a man who embodies all the personal characteristics of a fascist leader. You said about Biden that he is an aspiring tyrant, held back only by the strength of our constitutional structure. I would say on both those counts, who has the...
fucking held back my ass. Like, are you serious? Fucking full criminal immunity held back? Y'all are smoking a pipe, my dude. What the fuck?
Personal characteristics of a fascist leader, but also who is sort of pushing at the boundaries of constitutional structure, using the...
Pushing at the boundaries of constitutional structure? Even just for Donald Trump to get elected again, we had to delete part of the 14th Amendment. We had to give this guy immunity from all crime. Pushing at the boundaries? That's pushing at the boundaries? The administration...
That's not pushing the boundaries. That's rewriting the fucking book, my dudes. You literally rewrote the rules for this man. There's no coming back from this unless there's like actual structural changes to our democracy that ensures that nobody could ever do what Donald Trump did again. Like, we will never have like an actual legit like good faith effort into this country again if we don't. Like, I truly believe that. Like, why would anybody believe in this system that allowed that to happen? Like, if it's that, like, feeble and delicate or fragile that anybody can come in here and just fuck it all, right? Fuck it all up. And have no consequences for it is laughable. It's absolutely laughable.
Defend their decisions on deportations, had to instead argue that you can't have injunctions against the federal government nationwide. These are pushing at the boundaries. He's fundamentally altering the shape of the Constitution in order to make his actions bearable.
Power of the government to harass enemies, to create incentives, to punish those who have wronged him, to force institutions to fold. Trump has been, sort of whatever you think of him, much more creative and aggressive than any president of my lifetime.
Actually, I don't think about it at all. What about when Biden told everybody that they had to take their kids and get trans vaxxers in their dicks, and then shut down schools for 100 years, and then forced everybody to go and drink trans COVID vaxxers? And then what about when they locked down the whole country and ruined the economy and forced everybody to get vaccinated, and were anti-DEI?
I'm not sure he's been much more creative and aggressive than any president in my lifetime.
Even with a little bit of DEI and like social programs they had, it never fixed the problem. It's genuinely they got an opportunity to no longer be seen as the villains, and they took it. That's all MAGA is. 100%. That's all they are.
It depends on sector. I mean,
and that is all they ever will be.
Oh my God, it's so unbelievable, dude.
I'm old enough to remember in 2009 when Barack Obama called bankers on the carpet and said, I'm standing between you and the pitchforks.
On the left.
What is the comparison? What? Oh, what is he talking about? What?
That was widely understood as him saying, listen, like, you guys should support reasonable financial regulation because I am trying to keep these people from coming for you. And that was actually true.
Well, I mean, okay. The other way to read that is as a tacit threat, which is how you would read it if it came from Donald Trump.
This is a joke. This is bad faith. Does Ezra realize that he's getting, like, led around? Like, he's getting, like, this is like a... I don't know. It's like you're chasing a toddler around a room or a chicken, around the coop. Like, this is not a serious person. This guy does not do politics. This is like a joke.
Yeah,
actually,
the other way to read that is as a tacit threat, which is how you read it.
Ben's been on that pop politics for too long. He's reacted to too many TikToks. That's what's happened.
And from Donald Trump's mouth. If Donald Trump said to a corporation, I'm standing between you and the pitchfork sign on the dotted line, you would read that in the way that...
Because the difference, Ben, is that Donald Trump is the one that's fomenting the hatred in the United States against everybody else. Barack Obama came in after a collapse of the worldwide financial system, where universally everybody saw Wall Street and the big banks as the ones who made off with most of the money. The difference is that Barack Obama walked into a situation where the world financial system collapsed and everybody viewed it as Wall Street greed, whereas Donald Trump was telling everybody that the election was stolen in 2020. Donald Trump is making shit up to get people mad. Barack Obama's coming in trying to clean up after Bush.
I think rather than, I'm more interested in things he's actually doing.
Dude, he shouldn't even let him get away with that.
Right? There's an old thing about Trump. And the thing
I said before, the guardrails will hold, right? And they have.
It's a lot of things we shouldn't be letting them get away with. Okay.
I hate my life. I can't let.
I know he was talking about Ben there. Finally, fucking hey. I've been looking for one of these. I know he was talking about Ben, but I was also referring to just all of them as a whole. Like, we let them get away with a lot more than we should. It's the reason I'm here pulling up on the scene right now. Okay. It don't matter. You can be assholes. You can shit talk us. I'll shit talk you right back. And after 2 minutes of me calling your mom a slut and you swing on me, I'm gonna break your fucking arm. And I ain't gonna lose a wink of sleep. Not a link. Nothing. Not gonna feel bad for it. Because you're an asshole and you deserved it.
But dude, how much longer? I'll let's do a little bit more of this. I can't. This is like brain rot memes. I'd rather just scroll Instagram reels. It's about as informative.
And, the way that the analogy that I've used about President Trump before and his sort of tendency toward executive power, which has been, to be fair, a growing tendency across
all presidencies. Everyone's done this.
Administrations of both parties over the course of the last 20 years minimum.
What is the comparison, by the way? Hold on. Executive orders signed so far by Trump. How many? In 2025? Is there a list somewhere? Or can we just get like a number? In 2025, so far, he signed 202 executive orders. How many executive orders did Biden sign during whole presidency? From 2021 to 2025, he signed about 160. Trump has signed 202 so far. A couple of which have been phenomenal. Like in terms, or what should I say?
In his first
exceptional
year.
or... Like for instance, getting rid of birthright citizenship.
The radical devolution of the authority of Congress and turning it into a vestigial government is greatly disagreeable. I think it's a massive, humongous problem.
I'm guessing
when we look at what
that's
President
my
Trump has done, what the argument that I will make is that he's been more sophisticated in the second term. This is true, about trying to avoid some of those
sophisticated. Look at the word choice, sophisticated.
Constitutional guardrails. However, he is in fact abiding by court orders. When a court orders him to do something, then he actually is doing that thing. He's not.
Literally not. They literally flew, like for instance for the Abrego Garcia guy, they literally flew this guy in the middle of the night after invoking an act on like a Friday afternoon, and they're not trying to follow court orders. They're literally indicated the opposite multiple times. They've been close to being held in contempt multiple times. Some attorneys have literally been withholding information from the courts, from the circuit courts.
Andrew Jackson let them enforce their.
I agree. He's mostly. There sometimes we sort of know that Emil Bove and others have been a little bit on the edge of that, but I think in general they're abiding by court orders. And the Supreme Court is, we just traditional on this. I think giving Trump a lot of power he has sought, which in the way the system works, he's got the power. I am a little bit surprised though to hear you say that this is all, equivalent to the way say Obama used the executive branch. I mean,
the pen and phone.
It's not just pen and the phone. It's like you look at the way he's gone after individuals who offended him from his first term.
What?
John Bolton, Adam Kinzinger, like Liz Cheney.
Security team from Mike
removing security team from John Bolton, Adam Kinzinger, like Liz Cheney.
Security team from Mike
removing security team from Mike Pompeo, or for that matter from Anthony Fauci, right? Using deportation as a tool around speech, not just as a tool around immigration.
Well, I think all these are different policies. And
well, they are different policies, but what I understand them all as being is a singular approach to power.
Well, I will wildly disagree on the second part, and I will.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now my inner Candace Owens is coming out. Oh, for the Israel defense.
Let's start with the first part, then we can do the second part.
Sounds good. So when you're talking about going after political opponents and yes, I agree that is a misuse of executive authority. Absolutely.
Oh, a misuse. Just a misuse. Barack Obama was what was the word that he used for Obama? But when Trump does this, that's just a misuse. Misuse.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think that, I've seen it done, unfortunately. I don't mean to do a both sides system.
It's a both sides thing. They both do it.
Condemning both sides for the thing. So both sides system is typically where you say it's not that bad because my side is doing it because the other side also did it. I think it's bad when both sides do it. And so I try to hold steady to the idea that when the IRS cracks down on conservative nonprofits under Barack Obama.
I don't think that was ever proven. There was never any investigation. I don't think they turned anything legitimately over about that. If I'm wrong on that, somebody tell me. I don't believe that anything ever came of that.
And I know that happened to people. And people tell me that happened. That is a major problem. And it is a major problem when the President of the United States unleashes law enforcement on his political opponents. Again, I think you can make the case from the right, and the right is very as the United States. And I know that happened to people. And people tell me that happened. That is a major problem. And it is a major problem when the President of the United States unleashes law enforcement on his political opponents. Again, I think that you can make the case from the right, and the right has very assiduously made this case that law enforcement has been used on state and federal levels in ways with President Trump that were at best creative. But yes, it is a problem when Donald Trump does it as well. When it comes to the deportation policies, there I will strenuously disagree, and I wish that we had these deportation policies all along. I do not think that we have a duty to import people to the United States who do not like our civilization, support terrorist groups, do not have any real kinship with our values, and have come here to lead protests at Columbia University.
You think we should deport people for speech?
I do not think that you have the same free speech rights as a person who's seeking to immigrate to the country that you
weasel words
do if you are born in the country. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that the President of the United States believes that he can deport Ilhan Omar, who's a citizen of the United States, and saying the exact same things as Mahmoud Khalil, who's not.
They've said it though, haven't they? And by they, I mean Republican lawmakers? I don't know if Trump himself said it.
Citizen of the United States.
No, how to green card? You're not supposed to deport people for speech.
Yes, but there's a difference between green card holding and actual citizenship. That can be fought out in court. The basic idea that we should.
The reason I argue with it.
He's weaseling around here too. There's a difference between green card holding and actual citizenship. Green card is the hard thing to get, number one. Number two, we're not talking about deporting people for necessarily like supporting terrorists or facilitating terrorism. We're talking about deporting people because they disagree on Israel-Palestine. That's what we're really talking about right now.
Yes, that we're seeing a unified use of power, right? Unified theory of power. Is that, from 2020 to 2024, there's a big argument that emerges around free speech. And I don't think that argument, by the way, is crazy, right? I think that there's a lot that sort of liberals and liberalism has to rethink that it did in that period. The thing where Graham Lindenham, the comedian, there's a big argument that emerges around free speech. And I don't think that argument, by the way, is crazy, right? I think that there's a lot that sort of liberals and liberalism has to rethink that it did.
The whole fucking deporting people for freedom of speech thing, I thought we were against punishing people for freedom of speech. What the fuck? Such like a huge thing to just flip on. Like especially like as the party that's championing freedom of speech or whatever,
in that period.
Wait, which period? The 2020? The COVID period?
The reason I argue with this, that we're seeing a unified use of power, right? A unified theory of power, is that, from 2020 to 2024, there's a big argument that emerges around free speech. And I don't think that argument, by the way, is crazy, right? I think that there's a lot that sort of liberals and liberalism has to rethink that it did in that.
You should never, ever give ground to that against fascists like Ben Shapiro over here, who have no problem with the government, with Donald Trump trying to literally deprive people of their speech because they don't like their opinions, versus a government that, there's two key elements here, okay? One is that a lot of the bad speech here, and Ezra even just up, he said 2020 to 2024, a lot of these speech restrictions or curtailments happened under Donald Trump, number one. Number two, a lot of these speech restrictions happened due to private companies deciding to do it, right? It's not like Trump was telling Google or Facebook they needed to ban people for things. And number three, a lot of these restrictions were happening because people genuinely were trying not to let the country be destroyed, right? You had Cambridge Analytica, where people's analytics were being dug and information was being, gone through with a fine-tooth comb to target voters in ways that never should have happened. You had all of the Russian intrusion that people, before they got brain broken, saw that there were foreign enemies trying to significantly manipulate or influence our election system. You had so much information going around about COVID, about vaccines, about so many things. There were a lot of people who were like, okay, there's a lot of crazy out there. Like, how do we responsibly manage this, right? But most importantly, not only, okay, you can say they went too far, sure, not because they were all in lockstep conspiracy trying to deprive you of your freedom of speech, because remember, every single prediction that conservatives made about those curtailments were wrong. There were no permanent vaccine mandates. There were no permanent travel restrictions. There were no permanent lockdowns. There were no permanent powers granted to the government related to any of the quarantine or anything. There was no, and the restrictions on speech on platforms also never was permanent. Those all got walked back within a year or two. All those got walked back under Biden, under the Biden administration. Some of the harshest ones that were put under the Trump administration were walked back while Biden was president. It's not like they needed conservatives to come in and save the day. Platforms just decided on their own, okay, we probably cracked down a little bit too much on this. We're going to walk back some of the aggressive policing of our conspiracy on a lot of these social media platforms.
Period. The thing where Grant Lim, the comedian, who said a bunch of shitty tweets, but then got met at Heathrow by police. That's a problem, right? That's not how that should
Also, remember Twitter files. There was no evidence, for instance, that they said that the FBI and everybody was dictating these platforms how to run their platform. That never materialized.
And I think that, it is something that sort of we on the left have to answer for having
pretty much everything.
I don't even know which thing Ezra Klein is citing there. So I think worth looking into. He's usually not wrong with the facts. I don't know what he's referring to specifically.
And I think that, it is something that sort of we on the left have to answer for having, in some cases, been enthusiastic about things like that.
Thing? Oh, why do we have in the United States? What? Okay.
But in other cases, just decided to avert our eyes, right? If a bad thing was happening to a person we thought was bad, we just didn't talk about it, right? But there's a very principled defense of free speech, including speech you hated, right, on the right. And what I see happening with Trump is anything, people, institutions, that he perceives as threatening him. And in many cases, just speaking out against him or having investigated him or, participated in his impeachment proceedings, with Adam Schiff or something else, he is using what powers he has to go after them, alleging mortgage fraud or cracking down in a million.
The mortgage fraud thing, which was totally fucking bullshit, by the way, which they publicized, but was total fucking bullshit. And the reason why he was attacking that person is because he wanted executive control over the Federal Reserve and the ability to set interest rates from the White House, okay, which is already crazy in and of itself.
Ways on universities. The thing with the law firms, I think, was an example of that. I mean, when I
law firms is a better example than the universities.
No, the universities is doing exactly what you guys said Obama and Biden were going to do the whole time. You guys said that they were going to try to control curriculum in the United States. That they were going to tell the universities what they were or weren't allowed to teach. That's exactly what Donald Trump did. It's a great example. You guys have to fire these people. You guys can't have these policies. You guys can't do these things. Or else I'm going to rescind the funding from you. I'm going to defund your school. I'm going to make it so people can't get visas or whatever to come to school here. I'm going to make it so that you guys can't have any funding for federal student aid or whatever.
We will probably sort of differ on what is motivating different examples, but what I see is a unified effort, right? Again, which goes back to counter-revolutionary tactics, right? This is, I think, in some ways the difference between being conservative and being counter-revolutionary. Say, this has gotten out of hand, this whole society, this whole place. And what we need to do is use the power of the state to change it, right? When Trump is up there saying that ABC and CBS should maybe have their broadcast licenses revoked, he sees Chris Christie on TV criticizing NBC, he's going to open an investigation.
He's suing people over and over and over again every time they say something that he doesn't like. He's taking them to court constantly. He's making settlements with his best friends with these companies over and over again.
To the bridge. It's different powers in different cases, right? They're being very, I think, creative. But it is, to me, extremely unified approach to how do you use the federal government to chill what people are willing to do. And by the way, as a reporter, right, we now have the experience, and many people in the profession have talked about this, of sources who are doing nothing wrong, who are just, they're just experts on a thing. I don't want to get quoted anymore. I don't want them to come after me, right? The chilling effect is there. It's happening.
So I think that, again, it turns...
But wait, you think that cancel culture was serious under Trump? You think these guys wanted to be canceled by college students? Do you know how scary it is to be the CEO of Google when the college kids start tweeting about you? Do you know how scary it is to be Elon Musk when the college kids are trying to cancel you?
Both sides isn't really quickly here because it really does. But
the chilling effect is there. It's happening.
So I think that
Ezra should ask: is there a single thing that you could condemn the Republican side for, or Donald Trump for? Right. Also, this whole conversation has, by the way, been emblematic of my issue with this making concessions to the right without them making concessions first. I don't know if Ben has made a single real concession this entire conversation. Ezra's made several. Right. Like if you were listening to this coming away from this, you didn't know fuck all that much about American politics. Sounds like Ezra's side is really. And maybe Ben has made some concessions, but for the most part, yeah, Ezra Klein, even he acknowledges that his side fucked up a lot, and they need to reckon with a lot of really bad things that they've done.
Again, it turns in both sides isn't really quickly here because it really does. But I lived through the Obama administration, and there was significant concern about the possibility of an IRS audit.
Like, listen to the comparison. Like, under Donald Trump right now, they're fabricating charges to take people to jail. They did it with the Russiagate thing with Tulsi Gabbard, and they just did it with that lady who's a chair in the Federal Board, the Federal Reserve Board of Governors or whatever. They fabricated that she lied on some mortgage document, right? They fabricated that. They made that up, and then they recommended charges, or at least an investigation to DOJ. And they published all of it publicly. Talk about a chilling effect. And then, what is Ben Shapiro's go-to example? What are you scared of? What did Obama do? What did Obama do?
Well, again, it turns into both sides.
He said he lived through it. What did he live through? What did he live through?
It doesn't really quickly here. It really does.
Okay, he lived through.
I lived through the Obama administration.
Yeah. And what happened? What happened again that you lived through?
And there was significant concern about the possibility of an IRS audit.
Bro, get the out of here.
Bro, that was the most Jewish thing I've ever heard in my life. Bro, talk about swinging it into the stereotypes. Our base fair. The IRS. No. Shutting down in 30 minutes. RIP. Oh, fuck, that was too funny. IRS auditing. Oh, God. Conservative, ladies and gentlemen. Conservatives.
It's actually so cucked. This is one of the most pathetic, like, I have to be strong for Ezra to suffer through his worst.
If the right would make the argument, I think, fairly coherently, that the mechanisms of law enforcement, particularly in the state of New York, were used against Donald Trump directly.
I think
I don't even know what the reference is. Oh, over the court cases or whatever that he got convicted for?
the state of New York, that was actually true. Right? The thing, I said this at the time, I didn't think that was a good case. I thought the case in Georgia was a good case. I thought the state of New York case...
The DC case was not a good case brought by Jack Smith, and the indictment was deeply flawed.
Loser, retard. Also, you know what? You know what? Ezra here, and obviously, and Younger Destiny, okay? Because you know what? At the time, I said the New York case was the weakest case, but you know what? At least somebody got the job done. At least somebody followed through on their... Because that Georgia case is probably dead in the water, because the federal case that it seemed a lot of the information was kind of based on, that's completely dead. Both federal cases are dead. So you know what? Fucking A. At least New York actually has some to show for it at the end of the day, whereas everything else is just erased.
But
I could go either way on the DC one, but I agree on the New York.
So, you know, again, I think that...
I could go either way on the DC one. So you don't believe that there was a top-down plot from the President of the United States to overthrow the election, despite the fact that literally all of the evidence is public for it? Okay.
That when we talk about, and I've said it multiple times now, when we talk about the grand centralization of power in the executive branch...
They don't go through the evidence. They don't care. Oh, wait. I guess no, they do. I mean, I guess they didn't. They just changed their mind, I guess. Because even Ben condemned Trump. I remember that much. Like, way... I think it was like within a few days of J6. He like condemned him right then and there. Most conservatives did. Which was the right move. But then they all went back on that, obviously. And now it's just, oh yeah, no, he's okay. We're okay with him being president now. Now that he has a chance to win and will give us what we want, you know. We'll let him be president again.
It's
I think
both
that the
sides.
some parts of the right is turning out as fair play. And
this is the, remember, this is the game that they play. If they can convince you that you've done it first, they have the right to do anything. That's always the game that they play here.
And not to agree with that, but I also think that if there's a gun in the room and you're then forswear the use of the gun, and you know the other guy's going to use it, then you look like a fool. And so what we really need to do is have an agreement to go weapons down. And instead what's happened is that it's basically politics is blood sport. And
Oh, it's like some bastardized version of the prisoner's dilemma that he's using, but somehow it doesn't apply to their side.
I think that you're now getting this on pretty much all sides. And there's sort of a pendulum movement to politics that is incredibly interesting. I mean, I think that, oddly enough...
Like, a pendulum movement from Joe Biden. How delusional. I want a debate cage match with Ben Shapiro for 3 hours, where we have to do facts over feelings. Let's both sides take 5 minutes to write down the authoritarian actions of Joe Biden and compare them to Donald Trump. It's going to be like 10-1 on this list, and the things he lists are going to be a joke. Are you serious? A pendulum? Like Biden was as aggressively authoritarian as Trump was? My God.
We could be living in an era where we see Donald Trump as holding back the thing that comes next. Meaning,
like, we're casting him as the savior against executive overreach now? This is not real. This is not like a real conversation.
Yeah.
Things can get a lot worse. I think there are a lot of people on the left who are like, things can't get worse. Well, you know, they say it always goes dark just before it goes pitch black. So
my grandfather had a joke, and I've checked it in my family.
Foreshadowing.
That I remember, right? It's the only joke I remember. It's a very Jewish joke, where he said, guy goes to the doctor, and says, doctor, I don't know what to do. I'm sick. My wife left me off. I lost my job. Like, help. Doctor says, smile. These things can't get worse. So the guy smiled, and then they got worse. Yeah, exactly. So it's a scary thing for me to hear you say that you think Donald Trump can be holding back the thing that comes before. I will probably disagree with you, right? I don't think we're going to bridge this chasm on some of the individual things. I looked into, at that time, the question of the IRS and the Tea Party nonprofits, and my read of reading Inspector General's reports and other things was that there wasn't much there. But I think there is something, my read of on some of the individual things. I looked into, at that time, the question of the IRS and the Tea Party nonprofits, and my read of reading Inspector General's reports and other things was that there wasn't much there.
There wasn't.
But I think there is something different happening here. There is something to structures that operate through a system can be challenged. There's an inspector general report on what's actually happening to the IRS from somebody independent versus getting rid of the inspectors generals, getting rid of the JAGs, getting rid or pushing the career prosecutors who are taking down Eric Adams to resign because you want Eric Adams in your pocket as opposed to facing court challenges. I think we're crossing lines. We're going to really wish we hadn't crossed. Like masked men in the streets. You need ICE, right? ICE has a role in the system. But it shouldn't be masked men who refuse to identify themselves or authority, etc. I guess the question I have for you, because I reckon, like, I'm not trying to get you to hold my position, but what's a red line here? When would you say to me, you know what, we entered something different?
Well, I mean, I think we already entered something different.
Biden did it. Be fresh.
The analogy that I've used for President Trump is that I think that the right has a very different view from the left, because the left sees Donald Trump standing over the body politic, prone in the street with a knife in his back, and say, well, Donald Trump is the murderer. He killed politics. Everything was basically more confined. Donald Trump came along, and he's the guy. You can see he's standing right over the body. There's a knife right in the back. And the right says, no, he's the coroner. And he came over here. He noticed the body was dead, and there was a knife in it. And he noted that the body was dead. Now, I think that he doesn't get credit for fixing it. I don't think the president has relegated power back to its proper channels of authority. But I think that...
Nor wants to.
Yes, I don't think he desperately wants to go back to Congress for things. But again, I think that we have been in a different era of politics for a while here. And I think that they're pretending that the thing that's happening is only happening right now and it's brand new.
I get that.
That's not true.
I wrote a book about polarization. I was on your show for a book about polarization that I published in early 2020. Easy to remember because the tore up bisected by COVID. But look, like you got Lisa Murkowski, Republican senator, saying...
We're in a time and a place where, I don't know, I certainly have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice. Because retaliation is real.
I guess, again, the question I'm asking is, at some point, I'm not telling you that there was not escalation over time. There has been, right? And there was, liberals saw this.
She's the one who, stood big and tall about voting for some budget or something, right? And then she just, buckled immediately. Is that right?
George, if you watch this way, I understand, and I'm not trying to get everybody to tell the same story about politics. It's actually just core to my politics. They're just going to be different stories. But you can escalate to a point where something tips. And that's sort of what I see happening here. And I guess I'm asking you, if you don't see it as having happened yet, when would be the thing where, instead of the book being, well, there are lions and scavengers, and my hope is Donald Trump is, getting the lines out, you're like, oh, what is your...
I mean, again, I think the book is largely a recognition that we're in the OSHA moment. We've been in the OSHA moment for quite a time. I mean, I think that the aggregation of power to a centralized authority is an outgrowth of the grievance-based politics that have been growing inside the United States and the West for decades. I do not think that these two things are disconnected. I mean, all centralized politics of the 30s, if we're going to do that analogy, is rooted in grievance-based...
Notice this is strategic because he's evil, okay? Notice the strategy here, okay? What is he saying? When his side is in power and we're looking to restrict the power of that side, nothing can be done because it's already as bad as it can possibly be. There's nothing. It's already as bad as it possibly can be. But you better believe that if 2028, 2029 rolls around and a Democrat steps into power, now we need to have a huge conversation about curbing executive authority. We need a huge conversation about curbing or curbing the powers of Congress or whoever else is in charge that he doesn't like at the time. But now that Trump is here, what can we do to change anything? What can we do to restrict it, right? This is strategic right here. If you really think it's so bad, why not ask your side to calm the down on it? Because they won't. They rely on you to do that.
Politics. That's what it was. Nazism was grievance-based politics. Mussolini's fascism was grievance-based politics. Japanese fascism was grievance-based politics. And that politics goes awry very, very easily, and it typically results in people who believe that if you give enough power to one mode of the government, it will do your bidding for you. And that's a very, very scary thing. And I think the only way to fix that is to do a few things on the personal level, to actually stop treating it as empathetic or virtuous, to tell people that their grievances are because of the system that must be completely wrecked. I think it's a huge mistake. And then on a political level, I think that we ought
the system, stop blaming grievances on the system. How many times has Donald Trump talked about the deep state, the bureaucrats, the bureaucracy? All of the people that are the immigrants, NATO, the European Union, everybody, the Democrats, Antifa.
To discuss how exactly the sides go weapons down. So a proposal that was made by my friend Jeremy Boring that I think is actually quite smart. I happen to be a fan of the filibuster. Now, I know Democrats right now are a fan of the filibuster because it's useful to them, and presumably if they win the Senate back, they will no longer be fans of the filibuster.
I'm a long time not a fan of the filibuster.
Right, so I'm a fan of the filibuster because if you actually wish for there to be any form of slowing in the system or gridlock in the system, which I'm a fan of gridlock in the system. I think gridlock is actually quite a good thing. I think that the American people should be told no an awful lot. And that's why the Constitution is very complex and designed specifically in order to create federal gridlock. So if you're a fan of the filibuster, I understand you're not, I am. What the Senate should do is they should say, let's do a constitutional amendment to enshrine the filibuster. I think that the attempt to do a convention of states in order to enshrine the principle that Congress is responsible for significantly more of a policy than the president. That would be a very good thing. I think the thing that the founders didn't game for, they figured ambition would check ambition. They didn't figure that electoral ambition would check actual power.
So let's talk about the founders didn't, because I think this is actually an interesting place to explore. I'm not a fan of the filibuster, but one of the reasons I think is sort of not dissimilar from why you are a fan of it, which is I wrote this piece in Newsweek many owners of Newsweek ago, and the argument I made was that gridlock is actually a better metaphor for what happens in Congress than people think, because in gridlock things don't just stop moving. Everybody starts to take side streets. And what the filibuster does is it often takes Congress out of the game. But the pressure in the party, whatever the governing party is, pushes towards the executive branch, right? So to do this on the Democratic side, right, you get 59 votes, but not 60 for Dreamers. Well, maybe we'll just have Barack Obama do it by executive order, right? Or on the Republican side, there's a delight, a genuine delight in the amount of executive authority Donald Trump has taken on. I think I have the number here, but in the first, Obama issued 276 executive orders in his 2 terms. Trump did 220 in his first term, and his second term is already at 198. Right. So as Congress gets more gridlocked, what we see is an expansion of executive
power. How many did Biden do?
One of the reasons I would like to be easier to pass into Congress is I think it would push things away from the executive. So I'm not a fan of your filibuster thing because I don't think the filibuster works the way people think it does.
Well, the reason I like the filibuster is because I think it ought to require large-scale consensus to make large-scale change in the country. And I don't know that 51 votes in the Senate and 218 votes in the Congress and the presidency is enough of a consensus in America to do large-scale.
Holy shit. Destin, you should post on Twitter a picture that you've unbanned a troll a little. I should tweet a picture of one of my emails for an unban and claim that I got Hassan to talk to my good friend Dan Clancy to unban me. Oh, shit.
Change. And and you will end up with policy.
I understand, but I guess the counter argument on this is that when the country feels the problems are not getting solved, it creates pressure for somebody who will solve them one way or the other, right? And so you got to make sure, when you said the country should get told no all the time, I'm not sure the politics you get after a long period of that is actually a healthy one. But let me give a different one of this, right, that I think about a lot. I think the stakes on the Supreme Court have gotten way too high. And I think it's weird that you have lifetime appointments, so you don't have a predictable pace of retirements. Then you have people staying, trying to hold on when they're, on death's door for years so they can get a congenial replacement from another.
Ben will never agree to this because he has the power right now. He might agree to it. He should, but
from a president of their own party. There have been proposals that you want to create a balanced court. And this goes to, I think, a pretty deep idea about what it would mean to not disarm, but try to fix one of the deformities of the system, which is the framers didn't expect highly nationalized political parties. They didn't expect political parties at all. So our system doesn't do anything to deal with political parties operating cooperatively across branches, breaking the interbranch competition that was supposed to have ambition, check ambition. So you could do something like, say, the Supreme Court was going to have 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans on it at all times. We have commissions like that. And as such, then you don't have this problem that it becomes like the most valuable thing in the world, worthy of all political warfare to sack it.
The legal realist argument will be that you'll end up with preference-based politics anyway. And so even if you have 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, Republicans tend to be worse at nominating justices than Democrats do. And so, 1/3 of the justices that they've appointed over the course of the last few decades have ended up voting with the liberal camp in the court. And so that doesn't solve your problem if you're a Republican, for example. I mean, the real thing that the founders did not game for, put aside everything else, the biggest thing they did not game for was the insane growth of the centralized government. If the founders looked at the size and scope of the federal government today, they would be absolutely shocked and appalled. Appalled. The federal government was tiny when it was created. The only question was it going to be tiny or even tinier when it was created? You could literally walk to the White House and just get an appointment with the President of the United States. And so the thing they didn't game for was that all this power would accrete to the federal government, and then from there accreted in the executive branch.
What do you think the federal government does now that the founding fathers would say the federal government shouldn't do? Curious if you would ever answer that. This is like a truism that's always given. Oh, the government's way bigger than they ever thought it would be. I mean, we have the ability to increase it or decrease it, right? That's what the amendment process is for. No?
And so, that obviously is a mistake. And the proposal that I've made to my Democrat friends is, you don't like when Donald Trump is president because you believe that he's exerting authority in ways that you don't like and it's affecting your life. I don't like when Joe Biden's president because I believe the exact same thing about Joe Biden. It'd be awesome if I lived in Florida and you lived in New York and we got to elect these things called governors. And you could even live in like a local area that better reflected your politics. And we could do fewer things at the national level. Like the Constitution originally intended. And then you could do your politics at the local level. It would be amazing. Like this whole subsidiarity thing, genius idea. It turns out that Montesquieu totally had it right. And that when you try to take a country of 340 million people and create a unified, the people demand policy, what you end up with is essentially a blood sport politics in which whoever controls the government gets to point the gun at everybody else. And then people get mad. Then the next guy comes in and does the exact same thing. And that's a very, very dangerous politics.
I guess there's an interesting way that's very, very pessimistic. Because I say 2 things. One is that...
that's literally the founders were pessimistic.
They were at times, right? There's a lot the founders didn't see. And people say, well, if you plot the founders here now, they would have absolutely this opinion. I'm always very skeptical. Who knows what Alexander Hamilton would do?
Alexander Hamilton would certainly not be in favor of the executive branch of the federal government issuing thousands of pages of regulation every single year. That would be shocking.
We would have to see Alexander Hamilton raised in this time. But going away from sort of ventriloquizing the founders, I think there's a good argument for more localism and more federalism. At the same time, I don't notice that people are much, much happier. Right? People don't. Right now, the Trump administration is saying they might declare a national housing emergency in the fall, which I think is a very funny line. Right? It's a huge emergency in the fall.
I'm not a fan of emergency declarations,
but it's because people believe that the housing markets, which are heavily locally controlled, become very, very broken. Right? So in a country of 200, well, listen, I wrote a whole book about fixing it.
I know,
but nationalism are different. Like I am actually on one level here where you are, which is we are going to have to find some pathway forward to de-escalation. Right? I think if the lesson the left takes from these years is, well, see how hard they went. We have to go 30% harder. It's going to be a mistake. I think we are seeing, my view is, we're seeing the way this whole thing can break. The whole experiment can break. We're getting too close to genuine violence in the streets for my liking. But I think it's going to be very, very, very hard without trying to figure out some way to say, okay, we have these political parties competing. We have to create spaces where people feel represented, even when they're out of power. And I think the problem is saying, well, it'll just be that Florida is its complete own polity and California is its complete own polity. So there are a lot of Republicans in California, man. You were one of them.
And then I left.
There are a lot of them. I don't think that's why we want to live in community with each other. Just get the hell out.
I mean, I'm not so sure that's true. I mean, truthfully, I'm not sure that's true. I mean, again, I think that people...
Not a national divorce, but national separation.
I mean, localism is what we used to call it. I mean, again, like treating it as though the
idea of localism was that you move away from everybody you disagree with.
I mean, it kind of was. That's how the United States began. I mean, that's literally
that's not what we want. I mean, I've read the founders too, man. That's not what we wanted for ourselves. We thought we were going to live in a community that had a deep set of virtues exhibited by the citizens in order to live together in something that would be diverse and complex.
Yes, the point is that it was state and locality-based identity before national identity. I mean, that's very clear.
Yes, that's true.
And so, I guess...
But that's ideological.
But I'm not sure that's an ideological thing, or that it has to be an ideological thing. I mean, I think that one of the big problems is that when you critique political parties, parties are like John Dillinger. Right? They rob the banks to death and money is. Okay, and so if you're a political party and you want to control the federal government, you need to unify your own party. And so what we've seen over the course of the last 5 decades particularly is the radical homogeneity of the political parties emerge. And so my proposal is, what if we throw the ring into the fire? Instead of trying to figure out better ways to control the handling of the ring, what if we just take it and we toss it into the fire and then we actually just go back home to the fire? Like, how about that?
Yeah, I think the part of the place where I go off of that is that, unfortunately, I don't believe there's a fire, right? That my sense is people want action, and they often want national action. I mean, and so there isn't a way to bind that. That's incredibly dangerous, and I think that's exactly what the founders were attempting to avoid. So, I can stop citing founders. That's what I would attempt to avoid. There you go.
Okay, I mean, I like founders. I'm happy with citing founders, but again, I think that the growth of the federal government, every time Donald Trump becomes president, every time he becomes president, I hear from my liberal friends that they are terrified by the prospect of unified national power in the executive branch. And every time a Democrat becomes president, I hear that they are very excited that the president of the United States is going to unilaterally relieve student loans and use OSHA to press a vax mandate that I have to sue the federal government to stop.
Like, think about the differences and examples given there, right? Why are you terrified of Trump being president? Well, he could deport my family. He could crack down on a ton of civil rights. And not just like civil rights and go to the next thing. Civil rights specifically, like the fact that in California now,
the fact you even have to ask is just telling in and of itself. It really just how the same people could again condemn him And then, like, next election cycle, back to sucking his dick, I guess. Fuck it, right?
The Supreme Court has said that ICE is allowed to stop and demand papers from somebody who works in a certain field and is brown. That's not an exaggeration. The fact that the President of the United States is okay with suing media companies now because he doesn't like what they post about him. He's suing pollsters because he doesn't like the polls they have. It could be fear for the safety or the lives of some people that you saw in government. So when Trump is rescinding Kamala Harris's extended protection from her Secret Service, when he's rescinding security clearances from law firms he doesn't like these are all things, we could go on and on and on for this, okay? Trump making the world scarier by increasing the aggression and the rhetoric towards neighboring countries. When Donald Trump makes our products cost more by tariffing it. These are the things that we're scared about from Donald Trump. What are you scared about from Biden? When he forgave student loans from everybody. Okay, which the Supreme Court blocked, and he accepted, by the way. Or, what was the other thing? Vaccine mandates from OSHA, which also got blocked. And then nothing happened. That's what we're scared of? Like, give me a break.
Right, so, like, if that's the game, then it only gets worse from here.
In today's super competitive business environment, the edge goes to those who push harder, move faster, and level up every tool in their arsenal. T-Mobile knows all about that. They're now the best network according to the experts at Ookla Speed Test, and they're using that network to launch Supermobile, the first and only business plan to combine intelligent performance, built-in security, and seamless satellite coverage. That's your business supercharged. Learn more at supermobile.com. Seamless coverage with compatible devices. Most software in the US for business plan based on combination of advanced network performance, coverage, security features. Best network based on analysis. Ookla Speed Test intelligence day 2025.
You like what Trump's doing on immigration.
Why?
And I think there are two streams of the Trump administration's immigration policy, right? One you can sort of imagine of almost any Republican administration right now, which is there was a huge amount of migration during Biden. There was a quite uncontrolled border. And you're cracking down on that. You're turning over some of that. You're going after criminals. And then
Thanks. It's one of the reasons why I want to keep pushing forward like this. I'm reading a glazed comment. I don't give a I want you to know you're not alone, despite every dip you encounter insisting to the contrary. Clarity is scarce, and the fact that you have it terrifies those relying on its scarcity. I think the reason why I'm drawing so much ire from a lot of the conservative people right now online, and it'll be gone in 3 days, this stuff always goes in cycles. Also, because Trump didn't give much about Charlie Kirk either. As much as that hurts you to hear, Trump is not pushing on the Charlie Kirk ankle much, which is another reason why I think this will probably mostly be not talked about in like 3 to 4 days. I think he skipped didn't he skip the wake or the funeral or whatever to go play with his golf balls? Or to go do a baseball game? I think conservatives like to do this big attack thing because it's...
Oh my god, is that true? I haven't seen anything about that. I'm definitely gonna watch something about that. Just no shot. This guy just dipped on the wake. After all that. Oh my god. Oh, he was a good man, but gotta go work on my form. Got about like 8 more holes. I don't think I'm gonna make it.
It is scary to them. They don't like the idea that somebody could call them out for their violent rhetoric. That's why they have to pretend like everything is so much worse than it actually is. They have to pretend like the Lord's been doing it forever. Because seeing somebody actually tell them like, hey, you guys are crazy and you need to calm things down on your side, I think something that makes some people uncomfortable. I think so, but...
True.
There's been, I would call it exulting and cruelty.
They are
There's been sending people to El Salvadoran prisons and Cuisino, posing in front of a bunch of like human beings in a cage. There's been the tweets and memes of, a studio Ghiblified immigrant woman weeping as she's deported by presumably border agents. The masked ICE agents thing and like the sort of the ruthlessness of it has been very telling. Like I understand that you want tighter immigration enforcement, but how do you take the rest of this?
So I think that a lot of our politics is reactionary triumphalism, and I think that is exacerbated by the online. And so, the way that you gain credibility with a very online base is to do some of those some of these things are talking about memes, right? And are basically designed for online memery. As far as the actual immigration policy, which again I think is a different thing, I think that a lot of immigration policies are quite popular with.
I don't know how else to express this. I don't even know why I'm saying this. These two guys on screen know this. Ben Shapiro absolutely fucking knows this. Ezra Klein just won't call him out on it. The idea that what you do is the only thing that matters, and how you phrase it, how you sell it, how you market it, how you talk about it is completely, totally irrelevant, is a betrayal of everything that we know about mankind. It's a betrayal about everything propagandists knew about propaganda. It's a betrayal of everything we know about art, media, anything. Like, telling somebody that, well, I might not like the rhetoric, I might not like the messaging, I might not like the videos they make about it, I might not like anything else, but the policy, at its most purest basic form, is okay. That's the equivalent of taking a fucking blender with you, going to a 5-star Michelin, whatever the restaurant, ordering a $250 steak dinner, and throwing everything in the blender, turning it on, and drinking it like a giant meat milkshake, and saying, well, it all goes to the same place at the end of the day. Who the fuck actually cares? It's such a stupid statement, and everybody knows that it's not true. Everybody knows it's bullshit. And you know how you know that it's bullshit? You know how you know that none of it matters? Because earlier, when Ben Shapiro was asked, why did Obama break the minds of the Republican Party, there was basically nothing on policy, and it was words that he said about clinging to their guns and religion, about the things that he said about Trayvon Martin, and the things that he said about Gates. That was it. So to say that the most brain-breaking things about Obama were words that he said, with no policies attached. But now when it comes to Trump, well, the only thing I'm ever going to evaluate him on is going to be, at its purest, most distilled form, is maybe the policies that he has, and I'm not going to care about anything else. I'm going to ignore every single other thing that they do. Bullshit. Even you don't believe that. Ben doesn't believe that.
the American people. But if the idea is that you're trying to detect in sort of the policy the animus, as opposed to saying that there are particular political figures who may be trying to make political hay by sort of posing in sort of kayfabe fashion, I think that's an overread.
It's funny. I take these things as much more connected. I mean, I understand that this is part of the policy, right?
Like, this is the issue that I have. They shouldn't be talking about, the conversation should be, why is this acceptable, the way that he's messaging. But instead, the way that it's set up and the way that Ezra engages is like, oh, well, that's an interesting point. I actually disagree that the Michelin star steak dinner that's blended together and drank as a milkshake, I actually disagree that that tastes about as good in a massive meat milkshake as it would served independently on your plate. Let's have a conversation about that, Ben. That's an interesting perspective you have there.
Overread.
It's funny. I think things is much more connected. I mean, I understand that this is part of the policy, right? If I were to try to defend the Trump administration on this, and I am not a fan of the Trump administration on this, I would say that, to take the line from Madison, the cruelty's point, that it's a signal being sent. And that the signal is leave. The signal is don't come. The signal is we can do terrible things to you. But that the militarization of it, the cruelty of it. I mean, I do think there's a tremendous amount of this word gets overused, but dehumanization and all this.
Well,
and I think that public leaders, I mean, you say it's like playing to the base, but public leaders are responsible for what they play into or don't play into.
I agree.
Right? And by playing into very, 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 even if you believe it's fake on their point, in a way, I would think it's much worse if it was fake on their part.
I don't think it'd be worse if it was fake on their part. If there's a naturalistic outgrowth of the policy, then I think that's actually worse. But I will say that if you were going to try to steel man some of this, and again, I'm not actually a fan of studio shielding people crying. I just don't think it's good policy. But if the goal is to send out the signal to the rest of the world, don't come because you're not welcome here, then that's exciting. I mean, the levels of immigration generally have dropped to the country. Now, again, when it comes to legal immigration, I'm actually quite a fan of certain types of legal immigration, not all legal immigration. But
has any of that increased? Have they made any changes there to the legal immigration process?
There are open debates on the right about immigration policy in the legal sphere, and you do see.
I like how he's like, well, there are debates on the right about immigration policy in the legal sphere. No.
Yeah, no.
On the right is talking about any kind of legal immigration right now.
Some of this kayfabe playing into that as well in weird and ugly ways on X.
One of the things I'm getting at here, I think, is that I actually find the cruelty as a policy in the Trump administration to be part of what the whole policy is, part of how it is reshaping the right, part of how it is changing the incentives for people who will come after him. It's one of the parts of what is happening in politics that I genuinely do find frightening. Like, I understand that people on the right see the left differently than I do, right? I understand they understand Obama differently than I do, they understand Biden differently than I do. But I think that one of the ways in which Trump broke something very fundamental in politics was there were some expectations of certain decorum that all sides, not in every moment, but broadly tried to hold to. Part of Trump's entire appeal.
Well, you see, Ezra, the thing is, the Democrats have been breaking those same decorums as well. Look at Obama when he wore a tan suit and it had Dijon mustard with his hot dog.
Is transgression.
Hey, the mustard. Haha. Told you they were still talking about it. They will never stop, ever. It will always come back to the spicy mustard sandwich. Always.
And then it's like the people running the social media accounts, the people coming up behind them, the people trying to appeal to the base, they just keep escalating transgression.
I think it's a mistake. I mean, I think it's a political mistake. I also don't think that's a good thing to do. I mean,
but I think it becomes, like, I don't think it stays in this cordoned off place of I'm just running some politics here. I think it becomes you, right? I think in the same way that, kids become edgelord neo-Nazis online, and then one day they actually don't like Jews. I think participating in this kind of politics is
Is the mustard thing real? It was just every little thing.
Yes.
And finally tonight, as you all know, President Obama is a real man of the people. And yesterday, he dropped by a popular Virginia restaurant to grab a burger with his pal Joe. Now, the Gateway Pundit blog pointed out that plain old ketchup, well, it didn't quite cut it for the president. Now, take a look at him ordering his burger with a very special condiment.
All right, I'm going to have just your basic cheddar cheeseburger, medium well. I just want mustard, no ketchup. If you got like a spicy mustard or something like that, or a Dijon mustard, something like that.
All right, Dijon mustard? I think the president watched just a little bit too much television as a kid.
Is that even an what did I work at? Was it at McDonald's we had Dijon mustard? Maybe it was at the casino? It's not even like that out there thing.
Dijon mustard? I think the president watched just a little bit too much television as a kid.
What is that? What is that?
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon? You mean the mustard? Yes, would you have any? Would I? Or do I? Both, actually.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that fancy burger, Mr. President.
Bro, like...
As you all know, President Obama...
It was just...
You like... Why? Who cares? This was Fox News in like the 2010s. How the fuck did they all end up in fucking cabinet positions? We'll never know. They're in our government now. Same people who like fear-mongered about spicy mustard. Oh god.
Just every stupid thing.
Genuinely.
Bro.
Barack Obama. A fist bump, a pound, a terrorist fist jab. Next, Michelle and Barack Obama. Fist bump or fist pound. People call it all sorts of things. But what happened to the old pat on the back?
It's just like everything.
What about the cool pat on the back?
It was just everything. Didn't they do a panel on the
He's
tan
going
suit?
on the
Or was that
greatest
just
hits run.
I thought there was like
Earlier today, you were criticizing what President Obama said yesterday. Admittedly, many Democrats feel he was inartful in his phrasing yesterday about not having a strategy ready for Syria. You also, though, criticized the president's wardrobe, his choice of suit, of a light-colored suit. Do you think that was fair to do that?
This morning we found because it was in the context of the president coming out. The world and the country have been waiting for a week for what he's going to say about Syria, what he's going to say about ISIS. And he comes out, yes, with his new suit on. But what bothered me was he began by not even talking about Syria. He said he wanted to talk about the issue that most Americans are concerned about, and that's the fact that the economic numbers for the second quarter had been adjusted. And to me, that was an insult to the memory of Jim Foley was killed.
Why did you take issue with the suit?
Because, you know, the image makers in the White House. Here's the president coming out at such a serious moment where he should be addressing the country on such a serious matter. And he looked like he was on his way to a party at the Hamptons, which would have been fine if he addressed the issue at hand. But instead, he started talking about the economy, saying that was more important than Syria. And I just thought it detracted from the seriousness of the moment. It's different, for instance, than what David Cameron, the way he addressed the British people today. To me, it did not show the seriousness and purpose that you need from a commander-in-chief at such a serious time as this.
Even when we've seen other former presidents, President Clinton, President Reagan, I believe, addressing the nation in similar attire?
At a moment like this, when the whole country is waiting to see, and the whole world is waiting to see, to me, he could have won whatever he wanted if he addressed the issue head on. But to come out and start talking about the economy, to me, just detracted from the seriousness of the moment. And I thought this was a metaphor for his lack of seriousness.
Like, just so you know, right, that same attack, right, this is unserious. They don't actually give a fuck about the suit, right? That same script was dug out of the closet for Zelensky. They didn't give a fuck about what he's wearing. All the weird attacks, no one has ever done this before. And then obviously all the footage of Churchill and everyone else has come out. No one's ever done this before. You see diplomats show up in different attire depending on what's going on. No one's ever done this before. It was all bullshit. They don't believe in any of this.
Dangerous. Once if only because you have to defend that you did it, and it's easier to defend if you did it. You can start.
I use the word ugly and moral rather than dangerous because I try to reserve dangerous for like actual dangerous. But if you're saying that it could lead to something worse, you know, sort of in the way you're talking about, then sure, I'm not a fan. I do not like that. I think that it is a problem, and I think that it is infectious, meaning that because it's transgressive and because it's fun, it has made its way over to all sides of the aisle. I don't think it's unique to the right. I mean, I think you see it on the left as well. And failure to recognize that it's a problem across the board means that there's not really a way to stop it. So yes,
like remember what we said. Remember me and Dan joked about constantly. Man, sure is boring now that Biden's president again. Remember when the entire country wasn't looking to see what insanity would come from the White House every single day? Remember when there wasn't scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal every single day? Some insane shit wasn't going on when Biden was president, and that was with 2 major wars starting. It wasn't as chaotic as it was when Biden was president.
I would prefer that stuff stop. I do not think that it's good for the soul. I don't think it's good for the body politic. You know, I think that a politics that says that when we have to do hard things, that we should, at the very least, treat them as hard things. Yes, we're determined to do them. Yes, it's important that we get this done. Yes, it's important to take criminally legal aliens and deport them. Does that mean it's important to have a picture in Studio Ghibli of the person crying? Probably not. Unless you can show me there's a calibrated reason for doing it, I tend to agree.
When you said there's a world that you worry about, where actually Donald Trump is the guy holding back the next thing, right? That one day, Bill Clinton, Republicans not a fan of Bill Clinton.
But now we look back at him.
Now you look back at him with quite a lot of fondness.
Yeah, well, at least the second term, right? Well, for one, good.
What is the world you're imagining there? What is the world like? Paint the nightmare here for the liberals, where Trump is actually the thing holding back, the thing that really going to come to.
Well, I can paint you for the liberals and then for the conservatives. So I'll do the conservatives first because I have a home rooting interest. So the nightmare for conservatives is the economy goes south. An AOC Montani-style candidate runs on the basis of oligarchy. Says that the Trump administration has enriched itself. Says that billionaires.
Correct. They have a lot of crypto money flowing in the administration right now.
I made that case on my program. Actually. That the systems are totally broken. We need to elect somebody who's going to break the systems even further and then going to reunify them in a very, very centralized way. And so what you end up with is an extraordinarily far-left president with all the executive power that President Trump has exhibited. But expands.
Well, wait, a very centralized way. Do you mean like how Trump now has direct stakes in Intel or in that Japanese steel company or whatever, like that kind of centralized way? Or do you mean centralized in that every single company in the United States of America needs to go to Donald Trump to ask him for reprieves against the arbitrary and capricious tariffs that he throws on everybody? Or did you mean centralized in the way that world leaders have to go and beg Donald Trump personally for, you know, some kind of federal tariff deal? Or what kind of centralization are you talking about, Ben? Because a socialist could only dream of the type of centralization that Donald Trump is like working on in the White House for economic policy.
Than that, with solidified control of Congress behind them. And so that's a nightmare scenario for conservatives. Is President AOC with a unified democracy?
What do you imagine that president doing? What do you fear that president doing?
Radical revision of free market economics for regulation. Yeah.
That's what they were afraid of Obama doing, by the way. He never did it. That's what they were afraid of Biden doing, by the way. He never did it.
I could see a world on the foreign policy front where a far-left president decides to basically surrender not only to a multipolar world, but to an America last world.
Oh, you mean like Donald Trump has done, where he actually seems to champion a multipolar world, where he is retreating from NATO and its obligations, where his only engagement with NATO is to brag that he's got other countries to throw more money at their militaries, where Donald Trump says that the United States shouldn't be taking the lead on things like Ukraine anymore, and that he's bragging that Europe is the one doing it now because the U.S. doesn't need to be involved, or where we're giving up on things like energy dominance because we've decided that coal is less gay than solar panels, or where we have decided that fighting China isn't actually a real fear, and so we've tossed aside all of the alliances that we have, even in North America, with Mexico and Canada, by making constant threats towards them, or by undermining their economies, or by joking about redrawing the borders between us, or where we're deploying the military against other people in South America and just blowing up boats of Venezuelans and then laughing and memeing about these boats exploding and bragging about killing people. Like this is unserious. This is deeply unserious. This is just not this is not a serious person.
Of a Donald Trump like character, because again, I would think
where Donald Trump turns out to not be.
The next attack is one thing to back up ICE on the expense of other groups. All of this, I think, would be really quite that like.
That's true.
It's the breaking point. The one breaking point that everybody can stop short of, including the Trump administration, as we've discussed, is just President AOC with a unified democracy.
What do you imagine that president doing?
I think
what do you fear that president doing?
Radical revision of free market economics for regulation. Yeah, I could see a world on the foreign policy front where a far-left president decides to basically surrender not only to a multipolar world, but to an America last world in which.
By the way, conservatives are very good at research, and conservatives only talk about real media. I'm glad this ghoul got to look at me. I hate this mother with all my heart. This treasonous, traitorous piece of shit. One of the most disgusting motherfuckers that exists in mainstream media right now. I hope he got triggered.
Bro, is that a fucking clip of him reacting to Destiny?
You're listening to me. You absolute.
You are listening to me.
Ghoulish, subhuman piece of shit. Play more of my clips on your channel, you worthless. God, I hate Jesse Waters so much.
Dude,
the United States takes not only a non-muscular role in the world, but
oh fuck! I completely forgot what I was gonna pause to say now. He fucking he just went off for a minute. Dude, Fox News is just always desperate for fucking some kind of attention, one way or another. They're always trying to fucking to mustard to the suit to the it doesn't matter. These are the same people who thought like playing violent video games made you a violent person, or like would make you go like radical terrorist crazy. Like, and they're just the only crazy people here. I don't know what else to say here. It's just mad projection. Mad projection.
sort of repentant role in the...
Read the headline? Yeah, that's why I said they do good research. Good research on those shows. But we already know that they don't do any research on those shows. Oh no, they used to with the Brain Room, right? Liberal wanted blood. Now he's banned with all my guns in the background. Oh, look at the little DGG guys here. Cute.
The world, which I think would be by policy front, where a far left president decides to basically surrender not only to a multipolar world, but to an America last world, in which the United States takes not only a non-muscular role in the world, but a sort of repentant role in the world, which I think would be wildly dangerous, not only in terms of security, but in terms of global commerce. An unwillingness, I think, increasingly to listen to the Supreme Court. I do think that the breaking point, the one breaking point that everybody's stopped short of, including the Trump administration, as we've discussed, is just saying to the Supreme Court, what we're doing, what we want, right?
They've said it. They haven't quite done it, barely able to, maybe, but...
I do think that we are on the verge of somebody trying to challenge that, right? And I think that when that happens, that's like all hell breaks loose. If Supreme Court orders do not hold, then you could see the kinds of crackdowns on free speech that you see in Great Britain or that you see in Canada. You could see a restoration of particularistic regulations designed to benefit certain groups explicitly at the expense of other groups. Right? All of this, I think, would be really quite terrible. Yeah, right now, people on the left are worried that Trump doesn't cover Chicago ones, but this is one of the reasons why I'm not actually in favor of the president violating Posse Comitatus Act. It's one thing to back up ICE in pursuing some legitimate federal...
Can you play that Waters clip of you? I don't know. Somebody will have it somewhere. I'm sure it'll get posted soon.
It's another thing to police crime in Chicago, even if you don't like crime in Chicago, which nobody likes crime in Chicago. So that's sort of the nightmare scenario from the right. The nightmare scenario from the left, it depends on where you are on the left, because again, there's a horseshoe theory where some left agrees with some of the right. So I'm kind of giving you the nightmare scenario from my perspective.
For a mainstream Democrat.
For a mainstream Democrat.
Where Donald Trump turns out to not be the worst thing behind the door.
Right. I think that, you could probably describe this better than I would. Think of a Donald Trump unbound by the Supreme Court. Think of a Donald Trump-like character. Because again, I agree with much of his agenda, but imagine the agenda that you hate most, but being effectuated by the executive branch completely without any sort of checks and balances. What would that look like to you? I can tell you that as a traditional conservative who's, hawks on foreign policy, many of the worries that I have about the left apply also to the right. Right? I think that there's a world where the next thing that arises on the right is a sort of conspiratorial, grievance-based politics.
I was going to say that if I were going to do it, I would say that Donald Trump, whatever his views, whatever moment he thinks America was great in, the thing that has emerged behind him, you would know what it's like to be young on the right now better than I would. But when I talk to a lot of people I've known on the right for a long time, they seem pretty concerned, even the populists, about what it's like being a 23-year-old rightist in the YouTube comments. Right, there's a real sort of rise of the Groypers, of Nick Fuentes, of that we've moved from a decade ago we might have talked about Yuval Levin. It's like a central intellectual right figure, and we've moved.
Why do you think they go so apeshit about you? Because Republicans like to control every single part of the media narrative on everything. That's all they want. And to hear somebody tell them, "Hey, maybe you guys should drive some crazy," because nobody in liberal media is allowed to say that they're conservatives. They're unhinged.
Bronze Age pervert, and that Trump is not. He does not come out of an ideological hothouse.
No, he's not.
He has his own intuitions.
This is right.
The people coming behind him do.
I totally agree. This I actually very much agree with. So I think that the president, what's unique about Trump, and this is why whenever people are talking about him as sort of like the crisis level figure, oh my God, he's going to be... Donald Trump is non-ideological. He is effectively a pragmatist. The way that I have described him before is that he is heterodox.
A pragmatist? He's a narcissist, and he does whatever it gives him the most attention.
But reactive to circumstance. So
for the most positive attention.
As I said earlier, I've been a supporter of continuing to fund Ukraine. That was not a traditional kind of Trumpist position during the election cycle. And President Trump put his hand in the Putin fire, it got burned, and he continued to support Ukraine, right? And so that is him trying anything. And
support Ukraine? Like, barely. He brags about how he only loaned the money instead of giving the money. What is he talking about? Like, barely.
Not working and him backing off the thing. Right? The way that the left characterizes Trump with regards to tariffs, right? The sort of taco thing, where Trump always...
What's the difference in money that we've given? Oh my God. You know what? I just solved. No, because they wouldn't agree. They wouldn't go this far. Or they'd want more. I was going to say, I just solved my lefty issue with Kyle Kuklinski's and all these losers. You know what? If you want to defund Israel and our support to Israel, I will only agree if whatever money we were sending to Israel, we 5x it and we send it to Ukraine instead, okay? Then you know what? Then you sold me. Fine. You've got a deal, okay? I'll take that.
Another way to describe it is he tries a thing, it doesn't work out, and he stops trying the thing, right? And so this sort of idea that Donald Trump is this ideological monster dedicated to wrecking all of the things, like that's not right. Donald Trump tries things, and it doesn't work, he kind of untries things, and then he sticks his hand in the fire, and then he takes hand.
What are you talking about? Donald Trump only untries things if he gets an ungodly amount of pressure. Remember what I said before, they never, ever, ever give up anything. He didn't take his hand out of the fire with the J6 stuff, or the insurrection stuff, or pardoning all of the criminals that help him stuff, or any of the, like, it's only like when the yield market started to change, and he's like, oh, I'm about to fucking, my shit is about to get fucked. They haven't given a fuck about the budget or the deficit.
And out of the fire, you can create algorithms to trade based on this sort of stuff, right? And so I think that the thing that both you and I are saying, which is the centralization of power in the executive branch, if in the hands of a true ideologue, would be a dangerous thing. Like, I think that's right. I mean, one of the things to remember about the 1930s, and again, people keep studying the 1930s, is that the mechanisms of power pre-existed the people who then misused the power. I mean, that's like a real thing. The forcible use of the centralized government in Germany happened under Brüning in 1930. It was Franz von Papen who was getting rid of the powers of various principalities in Germany before the actual centralization under Hitler in the final enabling act in 1933. These sort of bizarre misunderstanding of history in which, like, there's one bad guy and nothing led up to the bad guy is not right.
There are things that lead up to the bad guy. The important takeaway isn't that it slowly crumbled over time. The important takeaway is that if somebody wants to do a thing and they have the support to do it, the thing will happen, right? No system, no checks and balances is going to protect you. Checks and balances aren't slowly eroded over time because there are multiple bad guys. They're eroded over time because the people don't care about them anymore, because people don't like them anymore. I think less important than any erosion to German, democratic levers of powers or institutions was more just a lack in general of the population's support for any sort of functional democratic regime. They wanted to return to something different, that some Bismarckian empire that they fantasized and never existed. The important part is that if somebody wants to destroy a system and utilize it in some way for some single-minded thing, that they'll try to do that. No checks and balances are going to save you.
And I fear that
actually based, that's what we were saying earlier. No, but like they never liked most of this country didn't like the fact of getting rid of segregation. That's just facts. Like, they had to enforce that through National Guard, like through force, military force. Like, it's only so long before, like, people having policies is only going to keep you up for so long, I guess, before the people who don't like it, again, are in the majority and have somebody who's willing to go against them, which is why we see the whole anti-DEI, anti-wokey movement now. Like, they never accepted it. They never accepted any of it. They were just waiting for their opportunity to have somebody in office. That's why they like Trump, because he takes the fight to them. He's getting rid of the corruption. He's getting rid of all the woke DEI. He's doing everything that the MAGA wanted him to do, pretty much. And that's it. Trump is nothing more than what the people wanted. That's just facts. Well, not the people, but some people, most people, whatever. At least those who are willing to fucking vote.
We're coming to a point where the dominance of a grievance-based politics, and this is why, as you say, I'm assiduously avoiding right and left in this book, because of this. A grievance-based politics that says in America, at a fundamental level, things that have made America awesome and prosperous and a good force in the world, that those things are actually bad, and that those things need to be torn away. That American history has to be seen as a series of actual bizarre conspiracies, complete with brainwashing of the American population. We didn't actually win World War II. We didn't actually land on the moon. Was America actually founded on slavery and not on the basis of the Declaration of Independence? Like, that's all of a piece. And when that becomes the dominant ideology, whereas and a good force in the world, that those things are actually bad, and those things need to be torn away. That American history has to be seen as a series of actual bizarre conspiracies, complete with brainwashing of the American population. We didn't actually win World War II. We didn't actually land on the moon.
That's your side pushing that right now, more than anybody else, right? That's Tucker Carlson right now that's pushing that we were the good guys for World War II, or that we didn't land on the moon. That's Candace Owens pushing that right now. These are the lunatics and that are loosely supported by your right-wing bro podcasters like Joe Rogan, right? This is Ian Carroll.
Was America actually founded on slavery and not on the basis of the Declaration of Independence? Like, that's all of a piece. And when that becomes the dominant ideology of the American people, that our problem is the system, then the next thing that happens is not something that anybody of traditional bent is going to like. And the internet makes all of this so much worse. It's so much worse. Because it used to be that we used to interact with human beings. Right? As I said many times on the show, like, we only go out and touch grass. Right? Like go and talk to another human being. It turns out that most people...
I agree the internet is an issue, but think about it, the difference, right? What did Joe Biden do on the internet? Not much, if anything, right? What did Donald Trump do? He partnered up with the richest man in the world to buy X, a social media platform. And then he started his own social media platform. And then he started suing and bullying every other social media platform. Both sides are not the same here. There's a huge difference.
Human beings are actually not in the mold of the comment section on YouTube, either left or right. But the problem is that politicians particularly now use the comments on YouTube as a proxy for what public opinion says. They use retweets as a proxy for what public opinion says. And
Twitter is not real life, but they sure confuse it with such. In some ways, I feel like the thing you are saying behind a bunch of this is that the thing you fear behind the door, that's Tucker Carlson's right.
The thing about Trump, and the reason why he could be the end of something and what could come next could be completely different, is any attempt, and the left isn't trying to do some parts of the right, to philosophize Trump. It's a fool's errand. You cannot philosophize Trump. There is no Trumpism. There is just Trump. Right? There is no Dana, only Zool. And so what you've seen is an attempt to turn Trumpism into a theory of economic disempowerment, right? which I think is actually quite wrong, because Donald Trump quite likes hanging out with, as it turns out, people in Silicon Valley and crypto bros and people he thinks of as innovators. But at the same time, he'll yell at China about how our manufacturing base is being emptied out. He, as you say, contains multitudes, but I think that whatever comes next is not going to.
I think it's a good place to end. Always a final question. What are 3 books you recommend to the audience?
What an unreal show. What do the comments say? People said the comment section was...
Last week, Charlie...
Oh my God. Ezra, the leaders of the Republican Party declaring war are not the same as rando Twitter accounts posting memes. No significant figure on the left did anything of this kind. Terrible weak equivalence. The fact that Ben never actually answered the question what his red line would be from the Trump admin goes to show that he's too afraid to cross Trump and his sycophants to go beyond meekly disavowing their fascistic tendencies, while our very democracy is dismantled before our eyes. The chilling effect on speech and dissent is evident in this very conversation. True, even amongst his own followers. Also, this whole the guardrails held line is the epitome of disingenuous partisan hackery. True. What about the guardrails holding with Biden when the OSHA mandate got overturned? When affirmative action got struck down by the Supreme Court? Was that not the guardrails holding? When all of the major social media companies decided to walk back on a lot of their censorship, was that not the guardrails holding? It is truly wild to listen to Ben confirm that the things that radicalized the right in America was Barack Obama making the most positively benign observations about the reality of race in this country. Like, it really does just come down to the first black president in the history of our nation made us uncomfortable by politely insinuating that maybe, just maybe, there might be a bit more work to do on the whole racism thing. The fact that this was so unconscionable for the right speaks volumes.
Which he was absolutely right about. Again, same year he was voted in, I was having the gay beaten out of me. It's not just the race thing, it's just anything that the conservatives have been, like, against. They never stopped. Never. Not since the civil rights, not since segregation, not since slavery. They're on the same shit they've always been on. And, like, to say otherwise is just denying reality, like they do. And we're not gonna do that.
Volumes about their intellectual and moral laziness. And it's almost too obvious to point out, but how insane is it that Obama's extremely mild comments turned the right into what it is today, when we now live in a moment where practically every other word out of the president's mouth would be a career-ending calamity just 15 years ago. True. Holy shit, these guys should do the Ezra Klein show. What the f? This was sad to watch. This human just said birtherism had nothing to do with Obama being black. It was just because he sounded like he wasn't from here, ? How can this be taken seriously? Shapiro's revisionist history is something to behold. Conveniently forgotten that McConnell blocked all of Obama's efforts from the jump. Forgot that the GOP response to their 2012 loss was the autopsy that concluded that they should be more inclusive. Also amazing is him blaming the backlash to Obama on everything but racism. Unbelievable that someone with such huge blind spots is taken seriously. True. Next week, Ezra Klein is talking to Stephen Miller about civil liberties. True. This list of radicalizing moments from Obama by today's standards is actually laughable. True. Charlie Kirk called for Joe Biden to be given the death penalty, downplayed the attempted murder of Paul Pelosi, he made jokes about it, blamed the murder of Melissa Hortman and her husband on Tim Walz. The list goes on and on and on. That's like in the last 6 months. That's like in recent history, okay? The list goes on and on and on. He loved political violence and was definitely not practicing politics the right way. I love this conversation, but you have to fact check Ben Shapiro in real time. The Tea Party formed to counter Barack Obama just 2 months after Obama won in 2008 and barely been sworn in a couple of years before he got Obamacare passed into law. Shapiro, oh yeah, true. He said that that the Tea Party formed in response to the ACA. That was a joke comment. I don't even think I called it all the time. That was such a stupid comment. Shapiro tried his best to mask that the former conservative Republican Party turned into a more radical right Republican Party as a reaction to Obama's existence himself. I'm glad that Klein played Obama's comments because they seem benign, but for people who already had fear of demographic change and of economic uncertainty, the messages from more defined xenophobic groups, ethno and religious nationalists, found a home. Shapiro tried his very best to cast Obama as a radical and the radicalization against him as reasonable. This is why dialogue is important, because Shapiro himself had to concede most of Ezra Klein's counter-arguments. Kind of. They should have been way more brutal. My wife and I were shocked in 2016 when we learned Trump won the presidential election. We were strong Hillary supporters, so we turned to Ben Shapiro to learn the right's perspective, discover what we missed about the heartbeat of America, and stay in touch, not to be surprised again. Day after day, we heard claims and rhetoric that would not withstand scrutiny became more outlandish. With time, we had to turn off Shapiro because he continued to espouse lies that we knew were false based on clear evidence. I can't take him seriously anymore. Look at you guys. You guys turned into babies. You guys got ass pain after listening to Fox News for like 4 days. It was unbearable. And remember, Fox News is the best that we have of conservative media. That's not even dipping our toes into the alternative media hellscape of going to Rumble and watching Steve Bannon's shows, of watching Russell Brand's new insanity, of watching all the insane podcast bros, of the Tucker Carlsons, of the whole Daily Wire media apparatus with Matt Walsh calling for civil war right now, and the Daily Wire main account retweeting it, of the OANN, the One American News Network, of VOA, Voice of America, these channels that get sometimes rebroadcasted right into Donald Trump's own YouTube account. And that doesn't even get into all of the mind rot that are the crazy AI rando videos posted on Facebook and Instagram. Next, Ezra is talking with Jordan Peterson about trans rights. Shapiro's apparent belief that the election of Trump represented an end to grievance politics is pretty rich. True. Holy f***. He explicitly said the opposite multiple times in the video.
I agree. 100%.
Did he? I don't remember hearing that much.
The internet is kind of related, but the core issues have been around long before that. It's just another tool they use to do what they always have done.
Fine, please, we need civility of discourse and mutual respect. Shapiro, here's my new book about how some races and cultures are inherently inferior. I sense that Shapiro probably hasn't spent much time amongst poor people. Bro, that comment about black people was probably the funniest comment I will ever hear in my entire life. I don't know if anything will top that. I'm a little sad because I'm 36. I don't know if I will ever hear a funnier comment.
Like, it's supposed to make us feel better. And then when it didn't, like, that was understood as the betrayal of a promise.
Well, I mean, again, that is how I think most Americans saw it, including black Americans. That was a widespread sentiment, not just among white Americans, among black Americans, is that something had gone radically wrong in 2013, 2014.
Oh, wait.
So something
That's
happened.
what I was looking for.
This was an argument that was made by...
Wait, where's the one where he says black people thought that we were post-racial or whatever, or that Obama would heal all the racial divides or whatever? Wait, let me find the timestamp for this. Oh, no, it was this. I just didn't go back far enough. Please leave a comment and we ratio... No, we're not downvoting him. Chill. Work.
Michael Brown in Ferguson, the idea that when the president went out and he said that people wouldn't just make this up, right? And it turns out actually that a lot of it was made up.
It kind of sounds like the interpretation of Obama, at least to you, was that if he's elected, we'll agree we've gotten past all this. Like, it's supposed to make us feel better. And then when it didn't, like, that was understood as the betrayal of a promise.
Well, I mean, again, that is how I think most Americans saw it, including black Americans. That was a widespread sentiment, not just among white Americans, among black Americans, is that something had gone radically wrong in 2013, 2014. So something happened. This was an argument that was made by legacy media a lot, which was that the real reason people were so exercised about Obamacare wasn't because they really cared about Obamacare. Right? It was really because there were a lot of bitter claimers out there who, you know, were clinging to God and their guns and their xenophobia, and they didn't like the black president. And if a white president pushed Obamacare, then probably they probably had some problems with it, but they wouldn't have gone crazy like this. I mean, these people.
And I can tell you this actually, you're saying there's evidence on this. Like, there was a lot of polling on this, somehow attitudes on race correlated with attitudes about Obama.
That bitter comment, again, that was 2008. I'm so curious if anybody used Great Unifier besides Rush Limbaugh. I remember Rush Limbaugh calling Obama the Great Unifier over and over and over again. I feel like Obama never used that term. I only ever remember Rush Limbaugh calling him that. Facetiously, obviously. Last week, the president is creating his own personal military. This week, we must unite against these horrifyingly insensitive memes. Ezra, I know you mean well, and I agree that the rhetoric needs to be toned down, but it's been very clear that one side is not acting in good faith, as you say. MAGA supporters and the administration that leads them do not care about open and honest discussion. They want their incredibly bigoted worldviews forced upon us. They will lie and gish gallop and do everything necessary to convince the uninformed, and we can't keep pretending like that's not the case anymore. True. True. Ben Shapiro and I talk political de-escalation. My God. 826 comments. Oh, I'm about as big as an Ezra fan as you can be, but I've just found him so lost in this moment. I heard him in his intro and heard how scared he is, and maybe it's that simple. This country can survive Charlie Kirk's death. It's no worse than many acts of political violence we've seen. It can't survive grifters, social media algorithms, and evil authoritarians using it to rip this country apart. There needs to be more discussion on the latter and less of the former. And this conversation can't happen through discussions with Ben Shapiro or by saying Charlie Kirk practiced politics the right way. The issue, I think, is that there's two things at play here, I think. The first thing is that these people are your colleagues, and you really don't want to believe that it can be that way. It's hard, like if you read Lauren Southern's book, when I was in New York and I was hanging out with her in fucking one of Elon's apartments, like, we had a huge fight, and that mind fucked the fuck out of her. Because for a lot of these people, like, political disagreements are just memes, right? They're just like things that you do online that are funny. I'm autistic. I actually care about this shit, and I don't agree with that, and it pisses me the fuck off. And when I see people in real life, I get mad about it. I'm like, this is fucking crazy. You guys are insane. But for a lot of people, they're like, after the show ends, you shake hands, everybody's cool. Sometimes you hang out afterwards. You're running the same circles. You share a lot of the same media contacts, a lot of the same political contacts. Like, it's all just like part of like this kind of thing. And so there's an unseriousness about it that results from the personal relationships. Number one, and then number two, and this is like kind of scary / sad, is you don't really want to think it's gotten this bad because we have some kind of, I don't know if you call it a normalcy bias or what, but you probably don't realize the direness of the moment until you're already in the moment, you know?
History of America, which is the racial history of the United States, which is truly horrifying. That in his person, he was basically going to be the capstone of the great movement toward Martin Luther King's drink. And when instead things seem to go in the opposite direction, which was, well, you know, it turns out black.
We're good. Yeah, that people, you don't really want to think that, like, is it really this bad? I got radicalized hardcore. Not radicalized, but like it stuck in my mind a lot. And I repeated a lot. That comment on my subreddit where that guy typed in, remember, they'll defend gallows. And I realized at that point, I think that was the thing that shifted my brain into thinking of like, okay, well, we can't think about what they're defending Trump doing now. We have to think about what would they defend Trump doing. And that's why I shifted a lot of the conversation to like, do you think Trump will run for a third term? That's not an interesting question. The question isn't, do you think Trump will run for a third term? The interesting question is, will you defend him if he does? And that's where most of them will say yes. They'll admit to it. And that's the shift, is that it's not about what they support Trump doing right now. It's about what would they support Trump doing in the future. And the answer seems to be almost anything. I don't know where any lines are drawn at the moment. Doesn't seem like there are any. And so I don't necessarily fault Ezra Klein for taking this approach. I feel like I'm watching a lot of other people, Pisco with the left, I guess maybe Ezra Klein with the right, going through this like discovery process of like, these people are... Oh, and that's the third one actually too. The other side, they just don't think it's that bad. They really don't think that Trump is that bad. They don't think that things are that bad. That kind of plays with my second part, but yeah, that's true too. Ben's livelihood depends on feeling hatred. True. The president refuses to condemn violence and has spent his entire time in public generating cross-aisle animosity. It's not some secret. Trump is the reason we're seeing the spike in violence, and kumbaya moments like this do nothing to quench the fire, especially when Ben won't make any concessions. Like, there is an opportunity on these shows, right? Now, this would be another thing where if Ezra Klein did it, maybe there'd be people critical of him, maybe even people in my audience, whoever I haven't banned yet, would be critical of him. If Ezra Klein would say something, would have the conversation that I had, okay, not try to lionize myself, but if Ezra Klein would be like, Ben, I want to know what you think about political violence, and then you know, Ben does some weak, you know, whatever bullshit, well, I think a lot of us on the left or whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. And Ezra Klein saying, I don't believe I would ever condemn political violence in the face of conservative if you guys aren't willing to own a couple things on your side and say that there should be like a lowering of the temp. If that were to happen, I think that a lot of the talk would be about that. I think a lot of people would blame Ezra Klein for not making some concession or whatever else. I know that there wasn't the Charlie Kirk shooting here, but then the conversation could be more focused on that and it'd be more honest rather than this talk, which will pass by largely unnoticed and fade into the background. Because this, again, I'm not being mean, I love Ezra, okay? Remind melded brothers sometimes. This talk meant nothing and will fade away into meaning nothing. Nothing of great significance was spoken about here. I guess it's a little bit of an insight into the delusional conservative mind. How do they rewrite history? It's a little bit funny to make fun of Ben Shapiro saying the worst moments of Obama were like the times he talked about Trayvon Martin and Henry Gates or whatever. But for the most part, this will slip into the past and be completely and totally forgotten. I feel like Ezra is missing the point of a lot of the people to his left criticizing his article. I think it breaks down into three basic levels of misunderstanding. One, when Ezra says that Kirk practiced politics normally by going to college campuses and talking to people to try and persuade them, he's deeply misunderstanding or misrepresenting what the goal of those appearances was. Yeah, that too. And this is true too, and I try to harp on this, but obviously I'm like a debater, so maybe I have like an incentive here. Charlie Kirk was not a guy who went to these college campuses looking for honest debates. If he like set up a stand and was like, let's have a debate or whatever, that would be one thing. But these were massive, like orgy, circular, masturbatory events to trash college kids that were unprepared or ill-equipped to do these types of debates. Why do you think that we had to sneak into the last Charlie Kirk event, right? Why do you think that security came up and talked to me about, you know, even being there? It's because they don't want people that can actually vigorously defend their left-wing beliefs. They can only take the weakest, the college kids, the people who are outnumbered, that have a mic handed to them by some other guy that works for TPUSA, you know?
True.
Kirk was not there to convince liberals of anything. He was there to do hack roast comedy of cringe liberal freshmen for his radio show's base. You can see it in the last question he ever answered, and every question before that. At no point was he trying to convince the people he was talking to that he was right and that they should come over to his side. At best, he was trying to convince conservatives in the audience of his intellectual superiority by dunking on basically children. Kirk was a deeply violent political figure. He was not someone like Ben Shapiro, ironic given the episode, who even if I don't respect his views or how he carried himself, I can at least admit I've never heard him advocate violence. Kirk bussed people to J6. He called for gay people to be stoned according to biblical law. I don't remember hearing that. He wanted trans people to be lynched like we used to this. I don't remember hearing that. Fuck. These things might be true. I haven't heard the clip itself.
Excuse you?
He wanted to bail out Paul Pelosi's attack.
I need a source on that gay one. Please? Can I see evidence of that? No shot. No shot. I actually felt bad for him. If that's true. I take back. If that's true, I take back everything I said. I take it all back. You reap what you sow, my dude. That's just how it is. But Jesus, I want a source, please.
Hacker.
Give it to me.
He's called for civil war, to crush the multiple times, maybe. He was not a normal pundit. This is hardest for me, but I think Ezra is either overexpressing empathy as a fellow pundit. Oh, true, you got that. Or falling into understandable cowardice in the face of growing violence against media figures. I don't think it's cowardice. I just think people don't really think. I don't think people really think that it's as bad as it is. Violence is a fact of life in American politics. It always has been. Just because we are at an ebb in the pattern of the violence since the end of the Cold War doesn't mean that it is impossible or that it will ever go away. This intro felt like someone who thought that American politics was no longer violent, realizing that it is when someone he empathized with was affected. I don't know how I can put this gently, but he needs to realize that politics has been violent for those below him in social situations, status maybe, since the beginning of time, and that no one is immune in a world of statistics. This stuff happens. It happens more now that we are in the throes of a fascist takeover, a fact I thought Ezra acknowledged. You can't lose your cool just because it has the chance to affect you now. You owe it to the people it has always affected, some of whom have been directly threatened by Kirk's escalatory rhetoric, but look at the situation with a level head. This is the thing, too. We're laughing at people being deported, and it's such a weak word even, deported. Like, these people's lives are being destroyed. Can you imagine being picked up from the country you live in, maybe even with your family, and thrown back to a country you've either haven't been in for over a decade or maybe have never lived in before? Like, what is that experience of walking off the plane to start over completely in a whole new place, maybe now separated from your family? And this is happening by what number? Sometimes under the Alien Enemies Act, or sometimes you're shipped off right to an insane prison in El Salvador that we're paying money for. Like, but they're immigrants, so we don't think about them. They're not like us. We don't think about them as much.
No.
Which I get, but or sometimes they're not immigrants. Sometimes they're green card holders. Sometimes they're.
Oh my god, it was. So that was just the most spontaneous end of all time. Jesus. Anyways, Jesus fuck, Ben Shapiro out here doing work for MAGA. Yeah, I agree with Destiny that it was pretty much just a great example of how they rewrite history and just play the victim. That's why they project so much that the left is super soft and like plays victim, is because unironically they do the same. They always have. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's gonna change, but it's gonna have to eventually. On to the next though.